And let us begin our hearing on the selection of interviewing of regents in the state of New York. Just for the record, and so everybody understands, Section 202 of the by the way, I am Assemblyman Mike Benedetto, and I am head of the New York State Assembly Education Committee. And I will be running along with my fellow Assembly person, Deborah Glick, who's head of the Assembly Higher Education Committee. I'll be running this meeting along with, and they'll speak in a second, Senator Shelley Mayer, head of the Senate Education Committee, and Higher Education chair in the Senate, Toby Stravinsky. Section 202 of the education law provides for the annual election of the legislature of members of the Board of Regents. There are a total of 17 regions, 13 by judicial districts and 4 at large. And each regent is elected for a term of 5 years, and terms are staggered. The law further provides that regents must be elected by concurrent resolution of the legislature on or before the first Tuesday in March, or by a joint session of the legislature to be held at noon on the second Tuesday in March. Now, this year, the such days fall on March 2nd and March 9th, respectively. So those dates are coming up just next week and the week after. The Board of Regents oversees the entire educational enterprise of the state of New York. The board's most prominent role is setting learning standards for elementary and secondary education. The Board of Regents also regulates 54 licensed professions and registers academic programs at all colleges and universities, including SUNY and CUNY. Also within the purview of the Board of Regents are public libraries, museums, historical societies, the state library, the state archives, public broadcasting, vocational rehabilitation, and the regulation of proprietary vocational schools. The Board of Regents derives its authority from the New York State Constitution and education law. Specifically, Section 202 of the education law grants the board power to exercise legislative functions concerning educational policies and to establish rules for implementing those policies. The Board of Regents dates back since the beginning of this country and is one of our prized possessions, and we certainly are very concerned about those people who serve on it. Right now, we do have an opening in District 7 with the resignation of former Regent Brown, and we are therefore holding these hearings and interviewing people who have applied for that particular position, as well as 2 at-large positions. Right now, I want to just turn it over to the Education Committee Chairman of the State Senate, and Shelley Mayer, to say a few opening remarks. Senator? Oh, geez. Okay, I think we have a Zoom.
Here I am.
Oh, good, Shelley, good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize for not being in my office, but I will be shortly. I want to thank my colleagues from the Senate and Assembly, and Senator Stavisky, the chair of the Higher Education Committee, can introduce our colleagues who are here from the Senate. We look forward to hearing from the applicants for these very important positions. There's no higher priority for our Senate majority than the education of New Yorkers. We are particularly focused on issues of equity and excellence for all of our students and equality of opportunity. We look forward to finding the best candidates for this volunteer position. And I want to thank all of those who stepped forward and put their names into contention for what people should understand is an unpaid position that requires a great deal of time, energy, and commitment to the state's overall mission. So with that, I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, and then I look forward to hearing from Chairwoman Glick.
Thank you very much, Senator. And with that, let us hear from Chairwoman Glick and saying a few words, who normally runs these proceedings, but has graciously allowed me to do it today. I really felt bad that I was being neglected, but thank you, Ms. Glick.
Well, thank you, and thank you very much for taking the chair today. This is a very important position, and we have these deliberations and we take them very seriously because the children of New York, their education and their future hangs in the balance of our policymaking, and as well as the institutions from colleges and universities to museums and historical societies. So, and libraries, all of which are vitally important to our community. So I'm very happy to join you today, and especially happy to join you without having to worry about running the show. I would just say that we've been joined by many of our members who I'm sure Mr. Benedetto will acknowledge, but I just want to point out that my ranking member, Mark Walsick, has joined us from the North Country, so the St. Lawrence Valley, as it is referred to. So thank you very much, Mr. Benedetto, and colleagues. It's always good to see all of you.
Thank you, Chair Glick. And for one last opening remark, we'll turn to the Chair of Higher Education in the State Senate, Senator Stavisky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to my colleagues. First, I did see Senator Cooney. Welcome, Senator Cooney. Welcome to the legislature. You started off with a great start, and I know you're going to continue to serve the people of Rochester. And Senator Brooke, I did not see her on my screen, but I spoke to her yesterday at some length, and she too is off to a great start representing the people in the Rochester area. And I look forward to great things from both of them. They're great additions to our conference. And let me say that to add to what has been said, let me thank the people who are volunteering to serve or to be a candidate to serve as a member of the Board of Regents. I've said many times that there's a very long history going back to the founding of our nation and certainly to the founding of our state. And we've had some wonderful regents, Alexander Hamilton, I believe John Jay, the Chief Justice of the Court. They have set the tone and set the high standards for the regents. And we are unique in New York State in the sense that we elect the regents, and the regents choose our education leaders in our state. And that's a uniqueness, I think, that brings independence and it brings creative thought to the process. So I look forward to listening to what our candidates today have to say, and hopefully we will continue the tradition that has been set in the past. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Madam
Thank you
Chair.
very much, Senator. I appreciate, okay. John Liu, who is chair of the New York.
I apologize.
My chairwoman loves our colleagues in Rochester. I don't mind for a second that she neglected to mention her next door neighbor, literally in Queens. So I'm proud to be a member of both the education committees, well, the education committee and the higher education committee. And this is an important session that we're about to, I guess, continue with, because we've already spoken with other candidates for regents. And as Senator Stavisky said, the regents are the important people we entrust with our education policy, including choosing those who actually run our education system in the state of New York. So this is an important function, and I look forward to meeting with and speaking with the people who would like to be our regents. And Chair Stavisky mentioned some great regents we have had in history and over the years. And I know that she also meant to mention the great regent, Judith Chin from Queens. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you, John. I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of the members who are here today. In the State Assembly, Assemblyman Desmond Meeks is with us. Assemblyman Mark Wolski is here. Assemblywoman Sarah Clark. Assemblyman Brian Makelo. Assemblyman Josh Johnson. Assemblyman Mike Lawler are all with us here today, this morning, as well as Assemblyman Harry Bronson. Senator Stravinsky.
And I think, did you say Doug Smith?
Oh, my mistake. My ranker on the State Education Committee has joined us too. Doug Smith has joined us. Okay, Senator Stravinsky,
Senator
other people?
Brooke has joined us. I saw
sorry?
Senator Brooke.
Okay,
Did I miss anybody?
maybe.
Sam Prasad.
Senator Prasad, my seatmate? I apologize.
And Jeremy, Senator.
I mentioned Jeremy Cook.
Is here. Okay. So I think we've got just about anybody. We apologize if we miss somebody. We will continue to monitor the situation. We have our first applicant today, Dr. Dirk Hightower, who is applying for the position from District 7. Mr. Hightower, number one, thank you very much for your patience and waiting through all this. Generally, we try to keep these interviews somewhere around 20 minutes. We would ask that you have about 2 minutes or so just to give us a bit of an introduction and maybe your vision of what you see in the state of New York as far as education, and then we'll go to question and answer period. Okay, we always ask you to try to be as concise as possible with your answers, just for time. Okay, and with that, Dr. Hightower, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Distinguished assembly persons, senators, and guests, it's really an honor to be here and looking towards this interview and also being a potential regent. As mentioned, my name is Alan Dirk Hightower. My family, friends, and colleagues call me Dirk. For me, family comes first. I've been married to my best friend, Linda, for the past 40 years. We have 3 sons in their 30s, 4 grandchildren who range from ages of 2 to 8. And thanks to COVID, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays every week, we've been child caring or grandparenting our youngest. My bachelor's is in psychology, my master's is in school psychology, my doctorate is in school and community psychology. This is my 39th year working as a research faculty at the University of Rochester and Children's Institute. Starting in '82, I was research director for 9 years, became executive director in 1991 and served in that position for 28 years. Some of you I know I've met as the director of Primary Mental Health Project as I moved around the Capitol from the 9th floor down. I stepped down as executive director in August of 2019. In December of 2020, I became an adjunct associate professor at the University of Rochester Medical School, specifically focusing on working with the community. I have served the community in multiple areas, and will continue to do so. Excuse me. Throughout my career, even at 68 years of old, I get nervous in situations like this, so my apologies for those nerves. But throughout my career, I focused on developing, promoting, and implementing evidence-based programs and practices for the whole child, not only in education centers, but also in health and other various centers. I've worked with children, I've worked with families, I've worked within education early centers, public schools, universities, and the community. I've worked intensively in rural, suburban, and urban and rural areas. I have worked in sectors of education, human development, as well as human services and health. I've developed, implemented, and taught evaluation, research, and statistics. I value data, how to analyze it, and the associated information and the potential improvements that can come from it. I've helped develop and monitor budgets for decades. For these reasons, I believe I'm well suited to be a New York State Regent. I have 4 interrelated reasons why I want to become a Regent at this time. First is my personal mission. My personal mission has been for the last 30 years to make this a better place for children and their families. I deeply believe that creating positive and outstanding educational opportunities and experience for children and their families is primary and necessary towards that particular mission. At the state level, this responsibility falls jointly both with the legislature and the regions. Second, I believe a robust and sound education is primary to combating racism and creating equity in our society. COVID has laid bare that not all children in New York have equal or equitable opportunities. Many children and youth living in impoverished rural, suburban, and urban communities are falling significantly behind due to the digital divide of the 20s, a result of racist practices equivalent to redlining in the 1950s and 60s. And more generally, racist practice and policies, i.e. structural racism, allowing such inequities to exist and addressing and eliminated must be a concern of both the regions and the schools. Third, I was honored to serve on the Region's Blue Ribbon Committee for young children. This focused really on children birth to age 8. We know that most of our children are born on track. We know that some of our children with disabilities must be addressed as soon as possible. We know that many of our youngest Black and brown children and others in poverty fall too far behind too quickly. For all children to remain developmentally on track, thriving and healthy, and maximizing their opportunities, we must understand and address our youngest need of our youngest children and their families. And last, to effectively address the above, I believe requires cooperation and collective actions of the Assembly, the Senate, the Board of Regents, working together with partners in health, education, human services, alongside with those in the community. We know that the current systems of siloed approaches are not working for many of our children and families. I believe we need to invest some of New York's educational, intellectual, and then looking at you, the political brain power to figure out how to better integrate health, education, human services into systems at the state level so our children, families, and schools and communities will thrive at the local level. To this, I hopefully took my 3 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Hightower. I will start it off just by asking a quick question, your opinions or your thoughts on today's news. We are inundated with what people call false fake news, all sorts of news from all sorts of way to gather. How would you train? How would you look upon approaching this to have students think intelligently and diagnostically about digesting that type of news?
Well, I can speak for myself, and I think also how other people in this, part of it is helping students and other people understand what are reliable sources of information. And then not only that, but then finding convergence across different sources. I think we all get in our own little echo chambers, and it can vibrate. I tend to be in a more liberal, educated echo chamber. And so talking to, quite honestly, other family members who are in the rural area have totally different perspectives than myself, and finding out what they're listening to and so forth. But it's obviously critical listening skills and critical learning skills, and being able to go to places and find out for yourself what are the primary sources of the information versus just depending on the digested information that we get from all the news sources, but recognize that some news sources are more reliable than others.
Thank you very much. I would be remiss if we've been joined by Assemblywoman Missy Miller, who's part of the panelists. Okay, other questions. My ranker on the Assembly Education Committee, Doug Smith.
Thank you so much, Chairman. And Dr. Hightower, thank you for joining us this morning. It's interesting that we're doing this via Zoom, so who would have thought? So you mentioned a few things that I really liked. You mentioned the whole child approach. You also mentioned talking about making data-driven decisions. Now, you know, these days, some people might say that that actually contradicts. I don't think that it does, but how would you make sure that students are not just, you know, that students are treated as more than just a test score, as parents might say?
That's a great question. Part of it in working with the whole child, and I can speak to my experiences of working with the youngest from 0 to 8, you really approach it as a whole child. What are their specific needs and so forth? What test scores provide is kind of a snapshot of where a child is at a particular point in time. It doesn't give you the context around them in regards to their experiences as well as their family life and so forth. So it's really critical that data is interwoven with the other information that we have from observation, which again is data, if you break it down even further. But it's really combining those things together. Again, what I mentioned before, in a research paradigm, you're looking at convergence of information and so forth. And so what we know is that children may perform one way on an exam on a Tuesday, and on Thursday or Friday have totally forgotten, and or there have been other life circumstances that have created situations where they're not learning or forgotten what they've had before. So it's a combination of both of multiple types of assessments, but also recognizing the needs of children and working in directly talking with them and figuring out what is needed at multiple levels.
Okay, thank you. And if I could just one last thing, because I noticed that you have a number of publications and a different expertise as somebody who served as a school psychologist, which might be a nice asset on the Regents. What are your thoughts about, and I'll end on this question because we have a lot of questions, mental health and improving the mental health of our children? What could you possibly do as a Regent? I know that's not something that a 30-second answer could really do, but is there something that we're missing that, you know, you think you could really add to?
Well, I think you hit my strong suit if you meant to or not. One of the areas that we have, I think, almost neglected is looking at what are called true primary or universal types of programs, of really educating children from the beginning of how to problem solve, of how to identify emotions and so forth. What we found, and what other peoples have found too in the literature, is that in fact, by providing a milieu for children where it is supportive, where it's understanding, where they're really being taught to be expansive and so forth, that is probably the best approach for mental health. At the same time, we need to bring issues of mental health out. It is social and emotional learning is more of the key phrase within behavioral health is in the health sector, but of dealing with those issues. And we know that those issues have in fact expanded during COVID, and schools are struggling with how to deal with that. So it's really providing at the beginning level, the universal, targeting those children who are in need with a second set of programs. And then a third is with intensive programs for those who need that. So it's a multi-layered approach to how we might address the mental health service needs of kids. But the best by far is providing a fantastic environment for children.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
sir.
Hightower. Thank you, Assemblyman Smith. I take note for everybody, we are operating today without a clock. So if I happen to interrupt whoever is speaking, it's only because I think we're going a little bit too long and we must move on. I'll move on to the Senate right now, where Assemblyman Cooney has his hand up.
Senator Cooney.
Senator Cooney.
Oh, I said Assemblyman, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'd be honored. Either way, it's good to see you, Dr. Hightower, and thanks again for your interest in serving our state and our students. My question, you mentioned in your opening remarks some of the political will that this group of joint legislators will have to take on as we deal with education issues. My question back to you, Dr. Hightower, is while you have to look at a myriad of factors, including data, as you alluded to in your last response, as a potential regent, having the ability to be a change agent, to speak up for long-term frustrated parents and administrators and teachers in our school districts, not only in my home district of Rochester State School District, but also across the state. Could you speak to your collaboration experience and the work that you have done in Rochester, Greater Rochester already on coming to consensus and changing some of the systemic barriers to educating and providing healthcare resources to our children specifically?
Senator Cooney, I think, as you probably know and as others in Rochester know, I've been a collaborative force in Rochester for the last 3 decades. In 1992, we started what's called RECAP, Rochester Early Childhood Assessment Partnership, in combination with the Rochester City School District, in combination with Head Start, in combination with child care centers across the region. From that, we developed a process of collecting information and sharing it back in 3 levels: parents, providers, and policymakers. That has allowed us to move forward with a continuous improvement model that allows for that. When Dr. Jamie Aquino, the distinguished educator for Rochester, did a full review of the Rochester City School District, the one of a couple positive areas that he established was looking at RECAP and what we've done in early childhood. From that, it also expanded to other types of efforts. We established and understood that children, these are 3 and 4-year-olds, were losing 30% of their information by the time they reached kindergarten, if they did not have a summer program. We worked with the community with Summer Leap, which again involved different community organizations, higher education sites, as well as those within the universal pre-kindergarten sites, to allow them to now work forward and move towards a summer learning. We then took the information and said, okay, what's happening at early ages? And we identified that really 3-year-olds were coming in, or 4-year-olds were coming in 1.5 years to 2 years behind. We then worked with the community in establishing Grow Rochester, which is Help Me Grow is another thing across the state, which allowed us then to start screening and working with children from 12 months of age to 60 months of age. Again, it's not a single agency that can do that. And we tied in there with the Department of Pediatrics, as well as the different health clinics around and so forth, so that we could integrate it. Most recently, we've been working with the Systems Integration Project, and some of you may know Wade Norwood, many people know Joe Morelli, are the 2 co-leads of that particular project that has come together to tie in education, health, and human services, so that in fact we can move that. Again, Regent Norwood about 10 years ago came together with out to Rochester. We started the Rochester Project, which is now called All Kids Thrive, which our goal and vision there is to have children be successful from the time they're born until adulthood. That again has involved health, human services, and so forth. So it is across areas, and from that we have different types of relationships established and so forth. And we actually talk with the health, and most recently, Senator Cooney in the city of Rochester that has had a difficult time sharing with parents the safety of going back to school. And in fact, schools were one of the most safest places to be. The Department of Pediatrics and myself were able to set up a series of information sessions for the school board for, excuse me, the school board, for the unions, the teachers, and the parents. And from that, we've been able to move forward with getting more parents involved with it. Those are just a couple examples of the different types of efforts. I'm also co-chair of the school readiness outcome team, which was, anyway, just a number of different things, and they're in my resume. So
Thank you, Dr. Hightower.
Thank you. Let's move back to the assembly and Assembly Member Walsick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Hightower, for throwing your hat in the ring here. 3 quick questions, and then I'll get out of your way. What time do you think that high school should start? What time of day? What is the ideal temperature in a classroom? And why should students say the Pledge of Allegiance at the start of the day?
what time should high school start is most of the research is showing that it's not at 6:30 or 7:30. It's usually later in the day is the better. But
Can
again,
you
that's
pin it down to like an ideal time? Throw one out there.
ideal. It's for the student or for the school.
Yes.
It can be different for different things. For example, many schools have high schools come first because of athletics and so forth. For the school, for the student themselves, I'd probably say 8:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30, which is now middle school time or elementary time. For schools, though, many times it's earlier because you have the bus routes and so forth, and they don't want to leave younger children. There's many reasons for that. In regards to temperature, I have no idea. I would have to look it up and find out. I have no idea what the best temperature is. I know I keep my house right now about 67 degrees, but that's with 3 layers of clothing on. It really, I have no idea that. And your third one was, I'm sorry?
Why should students say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Well, I have 3 sons that are Eagle Scouts, and one of the traditions of there is also saying the pledge. It kind of reminds people of where we come from and who we are. And so for me, it's kind of a centering moment, and I'm not sure all children understand it, because I know for a number of children when I've watched, it's the pledge of a Jesus and so forth there. So it's understanding, but it really provides for a place where we kind of center and we're all together.
Thanks very much for your time.
Back to the Senate now with Senator Lou. Are you still on?
I am, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Dr. Hightower, for putting yourself forward. A rather brave thing to do nowadays. My question for you actually builds on what Assembly Member, I think it was Doug Smith, had started asking about. And that is, are tests necessary today? Are tests necessary? And are the Regents exams, do the Regents exams add value to the process?
Are tests necessary? I think tests are necessary. It gives us an index of where children are. It's how tests are used that I have an issue with. They can be high stakes tests or tests that help improve and so forth. We use a number of tests in most school districts. And if they're used in the right way, they're to find out what the child knows, what the teacher has taught, and a combination of both. It doesn't, I do not believe, and I strongly believe, that in fact used for a single test used for a high stake purpose, such as passing or failing a grade or whatever, is not the best use of tests, and probably should be eliminated or significantly reduced. There are some assessments, for example, that I understand are essential. If you're looking at higher education, if someone wants to become an attorney, there's called a bar exam. I don't think people are talking about getting rid of those, but that's also under the purview of the Regents. I think there are other exams that are followed for different types of high stakes in regards to teaching and so forth. Some of those may be well suited. I've not studied them well. When it comes to Regents exams, I think Regents exams have a certain part, again, in placement, but if it's 50% or determining 100% of where the child is at, they have a cumulative folder and so forth. So there's a wide array in the use of tests. So it depends again, how they're used more than what's in it. And teachers, by the way, use tests almost, and should be using tests on a regular basis to find out how much a child has learned in a specific area, so they can adjust their learning techniques and make modifications in their curriculum as well as the material.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So let us now return to the Assembly and Assemblyman Harry Bronson. And we'll go from Harry Bronson to the Senate and the Education Chair, Shelley Mayer. So first you, Harry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Hightower, for volunteering and interviewing for this position. We have known each other for a very long time. I remember when I first became a member of the Assembly, you were one of the first people to knock on my door in the LOB to educate me on some evidence on education that I needed to know. So thank you for that. I'm going to ask both of my questions together and then let you take them because to some degree, I think they are connected. You mentioned education in the context of combating racism and creating equity. I'd like you to address what I see as the lack of equity in education, and in particular, the lack of that equity's impact on our brown and Black students in the context of the Rochester City School District. And then lastly, as you know, there was a very significant debate after the Distinguished Educators Report that you have already referenced on whether or not the state should take over the Rochester City School District. And, you know, it's to no one's surprise, I was a very strong opponent to a state takeover for various reasons. So in the context of equity, racism, I want you to, and the second part of the question is to address what your position is in connection with the state coming in and taking over control of a school district, whether it's Rochester or otherwise.
Sure. I think the best example of race equity difficulties and issues is the digital divide, that in fact we know in the city of Rochester and in urban areas across and rural areas as well, that many children have not, and some children still have not, had any type of educational experiences through our digital services because they do not have the equipment nor the thing. Many of those are in fact Black and brown children who have not had the opportunity of moving forward, and that has been a major issue. The Regions has established a summit, a series of summits to specifically deal with that. I volunteered and was asked to serve not as a region, but as a community member, because one of the areas that specifically stood out is not only is there a discriminatory practice on for Black and brown students, but also for younger Black and brown students, where school-age children have in fact received many more resources in this particular area than preschool and younger children in families at childcare and so forth. So it's not only a Black and brown, but it's also an age discrimination where the youngest children are not being served. But it's both racial and age. I think in part that's also laid bare of how we move forward with getting resources and getting schools back up and running. For example, urban settings across the country, and Rochester being one, was much delayed in moving forward. And that's a real issue of how do we make sure that all of our children receive the types of issues and the types of services that are needed during this particular downtime. In regards to Distinguished Educators Report, taking over a school, whether it's Hempstead or whatever, by the Department of Education or other places, I've never seen it as successful. Maybe other people have, but in my research and understanding and so forth, I've never seen a takeover of school being successful. What has been successful other places is when there's ongoing and consistent support for schools, when there's ongoing and consistent, I guess, administrative leadership. Those are key towards it. It could also be a discriminatory practice because many times those school districts who are most likely to be taken over have been those with Black and brown students and with Black and brown supervisors and school boards and superintendents and so forth. So that itself could be considered a racist policy that I don't support.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Doctor. Senator Mayer, followed by Assemblywoman Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Dr. Hightower. Thank you for putting your name forward. As you got from the questions, certainly for me as the chair of the Senate Education Committee, the issue of the Rochester Public Schools is a longstanding challenge, and I'm glad to see you have so much familiarity and experience dealing with the challenges there, particularly on the early childhood side. And to that point, do you support full-day pre-K programs for all school districts that want it outside New York? The way it's currently funded, it does not guarantee every 4-year-old full-day pre-K in many, many communities.
The simple answer is yes. I think there's also a component of parent interest and involvement. Without the support, I would not mandate it. However, yes, I would absolutely provide it for every student and for every family that would wish to have it.
And thank you. And secondly, just on your focus is largely, it seems to be on the early childhood side in terms of your involvement in Rochester, and it's really commendable and very exciting. On the high school side, the graduation rate, some of the other challenges that Rochester has faced, do you have, and I'm not asking for a long answer, but do you have input and ideas on how to address some of these systemic challenges that Rochester has faced?
Yes, is the simple answer. And I have a number of things that I can go through. One is we have to, back to my opening statement, Senator Mayor, it's really integrating what we have found in education, human services, and health. Some of the best types of outcomes we've been finding are those that involve healthcare centers that are within schools. So the combination of those types of things,
Right.
and to the earlier point as well of working with the whole child, it's not just with the academics. I think people are familiar with the social determinants of health.
Yes.
Transportations. Well, the social determinants of the education are almost identical to those. So we need to deal with those at the family level for high school levels and so forth. So again, that's the systems integration, if you will, the integrating of those systems. It cannot be education by alone. We know that silo doesn't work when because we need to address those as well.
Thank you.
It also,
Oh, I'm sorry. I know they're going to cut my time off. I'm respectful of
Never
that.
you, Shelley.
That's all right. No, I got it, Dr. Hightower. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Mayer. Assemblywoman Clark, followed by Assemblywoman Glick.
Hello, Dr. Hightower. I'm going to try to stay on video. I'm on a train, so my internet is not fantastic. My question to you is, I agree with so many of our colleagues, particularly around the city school district, and appreciate all your thoughts around it, but wondering about teachers. I think they too are sort of our essential frontline workers. There's been back and forth about how best to evaluate them around teachers, and then also how to support them. So I'd just love to hear some thoughts about how we can best help our teachers, support our teachers, evaluate our teachers, and particularly in the challenges that they too may face in the next few years.
great question, Assemblyman Clark. As noted in my support materials that were shared, my mom was a teacher in the Rochester City School District for 20 years. My wife was a teacher in the City School District for 28 years. Part of what I have observed there, as well as working with 300 pre-K teachers and kindergarten teachers, not only in the Rochester and so forth, but teachers in general, and I'll make a statement, I'd say 95% of them are doing absolutely superb jobs. The principals know what they're doing. Other teachers know what they're doing. It is what we need to do is support them. It's support them with professional development. It's supporting them with consistent types of curricula, both from the state as well as the local area. It is really supporting them in regards to their workload and things like that. It's really, teachers most of the teachers that I know, and maybe other people have it different, are really doing their very best job. And not only that, but there's a shortage of teachers. There's a shortage of regular ed teachers. There's a shortage of special ed teachers. Just as an example, I was in Chemung County, and the deputy county executive said, well, gee, if we can get all this data, then we can really narrow in and really fire those teachers who aren't any good. I said, that'd be great. So let me just take you through a little thing. What are you going to do if you can't find a teacher to replace them? And they said, well, I don't know. There's lots of teachers out there. I said, and so I asked in the audience, what do you think of this? And the answer was, no, we don't. We have a shortage of teachers. So we need to improve the teachers that we have, look at the teacher education programs to make sure that they're top rate and so forth. So part of that. So Assemblyman Clark, I think part of it is getting the best people there, but at the same time supporting them with the professional development. And if it's required to have additional hours, then those are some things that the regions and the legislature could look at to making sure that we're up to snuff on top of it. So it comes to accountability. I think most teachers are there, but we do need to work, and there are different types of laws and regulations in place to take those children, to take teachers and help them move forward. And if they can't, then we need to help them exit to become successful in a different career.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Assemblywoman Clark. Before Assemblywoman Glick takes over, I just want to announce that Assemblywoman Forrest has also joined us for today's hearing. Assemblywoman Glick, followed by Assemblywoman Missy Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Hightower, Dr. Hightower. I'm just going to cut off my video so I can maintain my connection.
We can't hear you.
I just had some answers.
Deborah, we didn't hear any of it.
So,
Deborah, you want us to come back to you?
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right, well, it's going to be a little sketchy. There goes the first minute of my 3 minutes. There's
Deborah, you are just breaking up here or not even coming in at all. We're going to move on to Missy Miller at this particular point. I'm sorry, Deborah. Maybe you can call in later. Assemblywoman Miller, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Dr. Hightower. I just want to go over, obviously this past year with the pandemic is something that nobody has ever dealt with before. They're brand new experiences, and no school district, our education departments, there was never a need to have a plan for the long-term closure of schools. And so, we're all seeing the effects on our typical students, and when at the budget hearing, the education budget hearing, when I was questioning the chancellor, there seems to be a good plan in place. There seems to be good recognition that the typical students have struggled with this for the most part, and how to catch them up. But for the special ed population, students who have IEPs, most of these kids have regressed. They've, lost very hard-earned skills. They have IEPs, which are contracts that, mandate a certain amount of services and that are out of compliance now. And not a good plan how to catch them up or how to even approach this. The chancellor did recognize that this is a big issue, but not a real plan. what kind of plan do you think could be something that could address this, this tragic experience with this population?
Specifically, it's time on task that children need. And we have what's called summers. And what has been traditionally summer types of experiences for many children aren't there for children with disabilities, as well as for Black and Brown and children in poverty. I think we need to look at that very carefully, especially this year and for the next number of years, that in fact summer learning is absolutely going to be required to catch up a number of our students, but especially those with special education. There's no way to do it.
Many of them already go to school over the summer. There many, if not most of them, already are in extended learning, format. So how are we catching those kids up? How would you, approach that? Extra therapies, extra staff, something that would help the districts provide what was not provide, what's by law mandated to be provided on their IEPs.
Well, there's different levels of children on IEPs, and what you're talking about is those children with the most significant difficulties, that they have that. The largest proportion of students with disabilities have IEPs for sure, but are not they're in classrooms. They're in least restrictive environment and so forth. So I was speaking to that as well. But again, it is time on task with people who know what their needs are and providing skills for them at the next level that they have. So part of that, again, is using, well, some students are in the summer, you're absolutely right. There are many students that have not had that opportunity, and that the regression has been even further. So now with the 12 months of lack of a coordinated plan for many of them, we're going to have to pull the brain power together of multiple people in the special education arena, as well as health and, again, human services to address those, because they will not get better by time alone. If anything, what we know is that children will regress even further unless we approach it with specific skills, with specific knowledge, with highly trained people.
Thank you, Ms. Assemblywoman Miller. We'll go to Assemblyman Meeks and then Assemblyman Johnson. But 1 second, I want to recognize that we've been joined on the conference by Assemblyman Hawley is with us as well. So Assemblyman Meeks, please.
Thank you, Chair. And to Dr. Dirk, I pose this question. Can you explain how individual, institutional, and structural racism has impacted education historically and how it still manifests itself?
It has manifested itself in disproportionate outcomes of our children and of our society. That certain groups have fared less well than others, and individuals have fared less well because of the color of their skin, their ethnic group, or whatever. It's a discriminatory practice. It has come from primarily, well, depending on who you talk to, it's 400 years old, that has been built into different components of our government, as with slavery and other types of things, that in fact it has been a foundation of our government from a certain perspective. And then, but that's also been true for women and so forth. So we have been combating that and looking at how do we extend individual rights as well as collective rights to everyone, so that we the people are all people, not just individual ones. When it comes to the structural racism types of issues, at that level, we're really looking at laws and policies that differentially affect people of color or not, such as redlining when in the urban areas in the 1950s and 60s. And as I already mentioned, how it's specifically approaching right now is with the COVID is that in fact many persons of color are essential workers. They've been termed that most recently because they had to go out of the house where the rest of us are on Zoom meetings and so forth. So there's a full array of different types of issues that have been caused by racism, by those of us by white males, particularly taking advantage of other groups, both men and women.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Assemblyman Meeks, Assemblyman Johnson, to close,
you.
I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Hightower, for wanting to be a part of the Regents. Very quick question for you. Do you think that our school system, our high schools, our curriculum is doing enough to prepare students, particularly in high school, for life outside of school once they hit adulthood? Are we doing enough to educate students on personal finances, entering the job market? And depending on your response, what should we be doing to make sure that we have literate students, not just in academics, from an academic standpoint, but literate in life?
In many ways, I don't think we are serving many of our children the best that we can. That when it comes to issues such as personal finance and how to write a check, those types of issues still need to be addressed and worked with. I think another issue that we've learned about, that I've learned about most recently, is history. Yesterday, I spent an hour and a half with Wade Norwood, and we talked about the history of Rochester, the history of Rochester's education, and the history of education in general in the United States. And what we both concluded is that we are not teaching our students, do not believe we're teaching our students enough in that area as well, because otherwise we're going to continue to do things that we know are much better than where we should be. I think part of the remedy is looking at an array of educational opportunities. Right now, in where I live anyway, you can hire a plumber for $80 to $90 an hour. And in fact, it's projected that electricians, plumbers, and those people who get their hands dirty will make as much, if not more, than teachers and those with PhDs and stuff like that. So I think the vocational types of areas need to be extended and looked at as a very worthwhile set of presentations. I think also, though, in moving forward with high school, is there are certain experiences that high school students don't have to move on to other jobs, whether it's college or whatever, to provide those types of experiences for them. And some of those will happen in community colleges, others will happen at the university, but really setting a stage for that. So high school students in general, I think, especially during COVID times, are not learning as much as they could and how to interact and so forth. That's a huge area, Assemblyman Johnson, of where to move to, is that many children are spending so much time, and this is not just my work, this is others, on different type of digital devices, and this is before COVID, that in fact, the social types of skills that they have, those skills that are most needed for being successful in business and in life, are not being well taught. Those are all in the SEL, social emotional learning category as well. And schools in general have done a very poor job in that area of dealing with the whole child, and specifically in the social emotional behavioral areas mentioned before.
Thank you, Assemblyman Johnson. That is the end of our questioning. We thank you, Mr. Dr. Hightower, for your time, for your answers, and certainly we will be in touch before very long. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to bring on our next candidate right now. She is time restricted. She has to leave at 11:15. It's apparently a family matter that is going on, but we want to talk to her and see her ahead of time. So we have 10 minutes maybe with her. And this is Dr. Elaine Spall. Do we have Dr. Spall available?
Good morning. Good morning.
Dr.
Good morning,
Spall,
wonderful people.
We
I
are
can see
very,
you
very
all.
sorry.
Jerry,
We can't-
Vermont, Jeremy, all my buddies. How are you guys? I'm so sorry. I have, as usual, demands on my time, and it's just such a pleasure. I have so much I want to tell you, and basically, and my friends know I'm a fast talker, but 10 minutes. So I apologize. Hi, Josh. I don't.
Dr. Spall, if you would.
Let me defer to you guys.
Yeah, please, Dr. Spall, if you can hear me. Okay, this is Assemblyman Benedetto. I'm Chair of the of Education. You have about 2 minutes, if you would be.
I know, it's crazy. So
Sort of an introduction, and then we'll try to get some questions in. So go
terrific.
right
Thank
ahead,
you
Doctor.
so
We
much.
understand.
I am a public servant at heart. And so after all these years, I feel that this is the next job for me in behalf of our state and the children in our state. I have spent almost 50 years involved with and connected to education, from a professor at RIT at Nazareth. I've taught in private schools. I've taught in public schools, and my own children, of course, have been through public schools in Rochester. My work right now, the most important work I'm doing, is as a youth advocate running homeless shelters, and also dozens and dozens and dozens of school-based programs, alternative to suspension, teen court, diversion programs, and programs that put families and youth at the center. And as I said, as a public servant, my greatest role as a council member for 12 years was constituent services. And I find that as I get older and more experienced, I also understand that I'm not as wise as the young people and the parents in our district. And I find myself listening and offering them a voice, maybe that they have not had in the past. My goal would be to really continue to be a public servant and to put the work. I am a product of the SUNY system, both a PhD and a law degree, but those degrees mean nothing if we don't put them to good use. And that's what I hope I have been doing for a long time, but more than ever now. So let me stop there. And my friends know I could go on and on. It's an honor to me to represent this community. I have for years. But I really want to give you a chance, and I'm so deeply sorry we don't have more time. I know you guys were delayed by almost an hour, so, but let me go ahead and offer it back to you, Honorable Chair.
Yes, good. So we'll begin the questioning with Assemblyman Walsick.
Dr. Spall, thanks. 2 quick questions. What
Yes.
time of day should high school start, and what is the ideal temperature in a classroom?
What time of day? I'm sorry, say it again. What time of
Should high
day?
school start?
Well, you know, we know something about our young people, so I would say 8:30, believe it or
Okay.
not. I think that having an early start for older youth is not a good idea. I know
And
them well.
the ideal temperature for a classroom?
70 degrees.
I like it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Assemblyman Doug Smith.
Hi there. I can't hear you.
My bad, I apologize.
That's
how's it
okay.
going, Dr. Spall? Okay, so a few questions. What are your thoughts on the whole child approach to education? And as a council person, do you have any thoughts on the community school model?
I do. We run at the Center for Youth 5 community schools, one at School 45 on Clifford Avenue, and also a couple in Greece, a suburban contiguous, what I call our stressed suburbs. Those are suburbs contiguous to our city. And the community schools, one of our lowest performing schools across the whole state, School 42, became the RISE school, community school model, and it has been unbelievable. We run 5 community schools, and I'm going to tell you, Honorable Mr. Smith, that it has really been an honor to see those changes in those community school programs, pulling parents in, after school, extended day. Was there another question?
What do you think about the whole child approach to education? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we're doing a lot of work with 0 to 8 right now. Many of our programs are down to the elementary level, and we're looking at whole child social emotional learning, all the wraparound services. That's been my bailiwick for the last 20 years. And our alternative suspension programs have made a huge impact, keeping kids connected. Nobody should be sent home out of school suspended if they can stay in, especially if you're in 2nd grade. So thank you. Yeah, 0 to 8. I'm all about it. Thank you.
Assemblyman.
Thank you for your time.
Assemblyman, Harry Bronson.
Morning, Dr. Spall. I'm
Good
glad to
morning,
see you
Honorable.
here.
Yes.
First, let me just publicly thank you for all you do for our LGBTQ youth and other runaway and homeless youth. It's amazing work that you've been doing for decades, and opening the home on Arnett is really special and near to my heart. I'm going to just ask you one very broad question, and
Yeah.
we know that racism is embedded in our education system. It has an impact on individual Black and brown children, as well as the entire community. And we know that in the Rochester City School District and our surrounding school districts. How do you think we should address historical and current racism in our education system?
So I'm kind of radical, as you know, Honorable Mr. My Love Harry Bronson. People have taught me the system is broken. The system is not broken. The system is working exactly the way that structural racism designed it. And we've got to stop that. We have to be honest about it. The Center for Youth, my staff is 75% in the school district, 75% people of color. That's my goal. Often when you walk into a school, you'll see the staff from the center as those that look more like the children. We have got to be honest, and our work has been really embedded in restorative practices. That is the one place that I think will be the medicine, the antidote to racism and violence, is restorative practices where you sit together and you honestly talk about in authentic voices exactly what's going on and how people have been left out and left behind. We take our first kids into our net today, by the way, our LGBT kids, my trafficked young people, but our youngest ones, our youngest in our elementary sites, our secondary sites, come in with challenges that we have got to be honest about. And it takes authentic, strong voices, courageous voices to look in the mirror and say, we are not doing our best. Friday night, I had a call with 3 parents, all of them young women, young mothers of color, who described to me how they were diminished, regarded, ignored, harassed by our systems, often in our own district that we love so well. My children, a product of that district. We've got to do better, Harry, and we know we can. We have to confront it, and I'm telling you, the restorative practice work has been healing, and it's important for the adults to sit around those circles and hear the truth from our kids. We've got to hear their voices. That's the key. We've got to listen to the older young men. I run a school for young men, my New Beginning School, 45 young men of color. They will tell you the truth. When Dr. Acuna came as our special monitor, they sat with him. He told them it was the first time he heard the truth about what was going on for young men of color in our district. So, you know, I'm in there with you every day fighting for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine.
I have time for one more question or my family's going to leave me.
Yes, we have one more person to speak. Senator Lou, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sproul. Well, we don't want your family to leave you, but we don't want you to
I
leave
have
us
mixed
either.
feelings about that, by the way, but go ahead. Yeah.
What are grades necessary? Are grades necessary? And
Well,
do they
assessment's
add to
necessary.
inequity or?
Well, assessment's necessary, evaluation's necessary, feedback is necessary. Grades may not be as necessary as the kind of interpersonal connection. One of the things our kids don't have is good, strong relationships. If there was a way to have a narrative, if parents could have a sense, I'm not sure a grade is the answer, but we've got to have a way for people to have honest, good feedback so that our kids have benchmarks, they have something to strive for. We tell them how amazing they are and they reach higher and higher. More than anything, let's talk about 3rd grade reading. So is the grade as important as the achievement? I'm not so sure, but we've got to get these kids on task. It's our job. We've left them behind and it's not okay. When we say no child left behind, we have left children behind and we can and will do better. I know we can.
And what about Regents exams? Do they still add value or are they a vestige of the past?
I don't have as much connection with them in terms of feeling that they're absolutely essential. I think, again, we've got to evaluate and be honest around assessments. It may not be a Regent exam.
I must cut this off because I know Dr. Sproul, you
I know,
gotta
I
get
wish,
out of here.
but please
Thank you for your
email
time.
me, call me. You have my cell
will.
number. Anything you need. God bless you
Thank
all.
you
Be
for your
safe.
time,
Be
and
well.
Sorry for the rush. Okay.
That's okay. Take care.
By the way, we have been joined by Assemblyman Gandolfo, who has joined us today as well. We're coming up to our 3rd candidate for District 7, Dr. Nahako O'Connor. who's going to be with us. Is she here?
She is here.
I'm here.
Dr. O'Connor, welcome. Oh, it is a he.
It is a she.
It is a she.
It is a
Doctor,
she,
I
her,
apologize
hers.
deeply to you. I'm Assemblyman Mike Benedetto. I'm chair of the Assembly Education Committee, and we, of course, are in attendance. There is many assemblymen and senators here who might be asking you questions. We thank you for coming. We ask you that you take a couple of minutes, maybe two, just to kind of give us an introduction, and then we will ask some questions by the attending assembly and senators. Okay, and it's just a relaxed question and answer, so not to get nervous. And Dr. O'Connor, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Distinguished members of the legislature, thank you so much for inviting me to my own office today, but in this Zoom meeting interview. I want to first acknowledge Maria for her support in getting this set up and getting me to the right place. Thank you, Maria. I also want to acknowledge my fellow interviewees. When I saw the agenda, I was so struck and excited to see the names this morning. And I just want to thank all of them for the dedication for their entire career, dedicating themselves to the betterment of the students and the children in our community. And it's been a privilege. I've had a chance to work with some of them, and it's been a true privilege witnessing their work. So this morning, I hope I can share a little bit about myself. I was glad to hear Dr. Hightower said that he was nervous. Even somebody like Dr. Hightower gets nervous. So I'll try not to be too nervous. But I come to you first as a mother of 3 children in a public school system in the Pittsford Central School District. My oldest is in high school, and I have 2 middle school students. They've had quite a year of adjusting to first emergency remote learning, and then now have adjusted to a hybrid model where they go to school twice a week, have asynchronous days twice a week, and then have a remote synchronous day once a week. Kids are incredibly resilient and perhaps fortunately more flexible than many of us as adults. But if anything, the United States has taught me that none of us are a monolithic group. So while some kids have really thrived in this environment, many students really have not. And many teachers have had struggles while some teachers have thrived. And many parents have had struggles while for some parents it has been maybe perhaps a little bit easier. So I really admire the leadership that has brought their school districts together to do what is safe and best in the best interest of our students. And I think in this past year, it's really been this great reminder that teachers and our school staff are true public servants. So I really want to thank them. In addition to my role as a parent, I spent time as a community member volunteering and engaging with our school districts, specifically around issues around inclusion, equity, school culture, and climate. I sit on the district's Inclusivity Advisory Committee. And I deeply believe that, much like the military or many businesses, that diversity is the biggest asset and contributes greatly to the mission and vision of our organization. So in the case of schools and school districts, is that it actually raises the quality of education for everyone. So attending to issues around anti-racism and inclusion and equity is not only for diverse students with diverse backgrounds, but it actually raises the quality of education for all students. So in this role on the Inclusivity Advisory Committee, I've led the equity audit work to identify the gaps that exist, probably unintendedly so, but because of without proactive solutions and strategies, we will continue to see these inequities. So in addition to academic outcomes, we also examine culture and climate data to recognize that students need support beyond their academic work. We must really re-emphasize the importance of facilitating healthy peer-to-peer relationships, and also recognize the role social media has had on students' development and friendships and their mental health. In my professional role, I'm actually a professor at the University of Rochester's Warner School of Education. It is I always feel like it's such a privilege to have this role. I'm the director of program evaluation at the Center for Professional Development and Education Reform. And in this role, I'm able to teach and learn with and from educators across the state. Many of our students are future teachers, teacher leaders, administrators, nonprofit leaders, counselors, and policymakers. And it's really true when we talk about, the teacher is the student. Like, I feel like I go to work every day learning something new. As director of the program evaluation area, I collaborate with organizations to support an equitable and participatory program evaluation, which is a little bit expansive from the idea of a traditional evaluation that is more around accountability. The primary purpose of the evaluation that I engage in is for improvement of the services and initiatives, and also for equity, really with the lens of equity. So in essence, I get to systematically study organizations, their activities, the impact it has on the different constituents. My work has ranged from working with out-of-school time programs to looking at community school implementations, to looking at anti-racist curriculum reviews and needs assessments, equity audits. But I also actually work with NIH-funded programs and NSF-funded programs to look at the pipelines of STEM leaders throughout post-secondary schools, access to higher education, entrepreneurship education, and the topic is really wide-ranging, but my expertise is in program evaluation. I would be remiss if I don't mention some of my own educational experience. I was really fortunate.
Okay, we want to move on to some questions.
I'm looking forward to the questions. I'm an English language learner. I moved to this country when I was in middle school. So I have been a great beneficiary of the public school system that has helped me bring to this trajectory, has put me on this trajectory to bring me into this Zoom room today. I can keep talking, but I think that I'm ready for questions.
I think you're ready. And let us get the first question from the State Education Chair, State Senate Education Chair, Senator Mayer.
Hello, Dr. Kawaku Okano. Is that pronounced correctly?
That's correct. So I always say it's Kawaku. So it's Kawa and then the letter Q.
Okay.
Kawaku.
You're Okano. Thank you.
Thank you.
One of our focus in the legislature has been the challenges facing the Rochester City School District. I know most of your work is on program evaluation more generally. How knowledgeable and involved or educated are you about the specific challenges of the Rochester City School District?
Everybody has their own expertise. I've had the privilege of working with the different school buildings within the Rochester City School System. So I've had to do some work with the central office as well. And I've been involved peripherally at looking at data for the East EPO. So I've been involved with that from the very beginning. So around community school implementation is really the way that I have gotten to know RCSD probably the most intimately. But I actually also volunteer as a literacy buddy at School 33 and also at East High School, East Lower School, because even though I love looking at data and thinking about policy, boots on the ground and making sure kids know how to read is incredibly important to me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator. Assemblyman Walsick, please.
3 quick questions. Thanks very much, Doctor. Here they are. What time of day should high school start? What is the ideal temperature of a classroom? And why should students say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you for these questions. The first question, I immediately think about Webster High School, Webster School District. They implemented a pilot this past year while the pandemic hit, where they switched the elementary school start time and the high school start time. So the high school was starting later and the elementary school was starting earlier. The question is what time? I'm not sure about the exact time, but it seems to me, in thinking about parents and their work responsibilities and transportation And the way that we know the circadian rhythm of older students, it seems like high school, secondary students should start school later than what we have at this time.
Okay, I'll put down later.
Later.
Yeah, ideal
Later
temperature
than
was the next question.
7:40, later than 7:40. And then the second question you had was about the temperature of the building,
Classroom, yep.
the classroom. That's not my area of expertise, but I'm sure that we can look at thinking about what's the best learning environment for students. It should not be something that people have to be talking about. If it's a non-issue, that's the right temperature. So the third question is about the Pledge of Allegiance. I have a keen remembrance of learning the Pledge of Allegiance when I moved to this country, and remember every morning standing up and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. It was an introduction to this country for me, and I think my affiliation with the Pledge of Allegiance may be very different than other people, but it is a great reminder of all the great things that the United States can be, and so I'm not sure about the should part, but that's how I'm going to answer my question.
Well, thanks very much.
Thank you. Assemblyman Smith, followed by Senator Lou.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Doctor, for joining us and considering this position. Now, I'm looking through your resume. I see a lot of background in evaluation and quantitative research methods and things of that nature. So, two parts of this. How do we effectively evaluate students to ensure that we know that they've gotten the content without, having a punitive system? And how do we evaluate teachers? I know looking at this, at least my opinion is that there are two different types of evaluations, and that you shouldn't be using the same thing to evaluate someone's ability to convey information and someone's ability to receive that information. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I think we're at a crossroads and we have a really tough discussion ahead of us.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think that one of the greatest challenges that I always see organizations have is not being able to identify what it means to be successful. The definition of what outcomes we need to have are very unclear, and why we need to have those outcomes are very unclear. So when we're thinking about how we are going to evaluate students, I think we have to really think deeply about, well, how can they demonstrate what we set out are the outcomes. And the way that we have it right now, and I was listening to some of the questions earlier around standardized testing, is that I do not believe that those are actually demonstrating some of the values and the outcomes that we actually want as a state. And so, there are, one of the challenges too with thinking about quantitative measures is that it's a convenient way of capturing progress. And so I think that there is a lot of room, if we really want to invest in our future, that we have to have a little bit more of a complex evaluation system that's also qualitative and demonstrates proficiency in multiple ways than just one.
I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Senator Lou, followed by Assemblyman Meeks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Dr. Kawaku O'Connor, for putting yourself forward. Amazing that you're an English language learner. I want to compliment your ability in speaking English.
Thank you.
I'm just kidding. I'm just totally kidding.
No, but thank you. And I was going to say, we should thank the public school systems.
I would usually save that kind of crack for May, which is Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, in which we talk about all the annoying things that we hear from people all the time.
Speak so well.
Yes. Wow, you speak good English.
Yes.
And they literally say, you speak good English. Right, Jeremy? Anyway,
I'm shaking my head, Senator Lou.
let me get to my question, which is, some people would say that quantitative measures they're not perfect, but at least they're objective. And qualitative measures are obviously of higher quality, but they are subjective by definition. And sometimes people, it's funny because there are people who say quantitative, so-called objective measures actually have some bias in them and therefore lead to historical inequity. And then there are some people who say, well, objective measures like tests, standardized tests and quantitative measures, they're not perfect, but at least they don't have biases that hurt our kids. As a region, you're gonna have to grapple with that question head on. How do you strike the balance?
Yeah, I think it's a question. So this quantitative, qualitative measure debate has been going on for a very long time. And I always think about the third way. So it's like there's a mixed methods approach that we can take because there's things that quantitative measures can do that's really informative. The way that we have been using quantitative measures is to fault the individual instead of the system in which they live. And so quantitative measures can have can be a huge asset in understanding how is our system set up and who is it benefiting. So I think that before the idea was to blame the individual, but now we can use quantitative measures to understand which school districts, which classrooms need additional support, in which domains do students need to have additional resources. And so I think that can be hugely beneficial. So I think that there are benefits to using quantitative measures to evaluate. I think we need to use them in ways that can be for improvement. And again, I'm always going to push for equity because if we think about, we really have to ask ourselves, has this really been an equitable system? The way that we're evaluating, has it been an equitable system? I always believe that educational systems were systems for social mobility. As I was learning more and more about educational system, I have also come to realize that if we don't do things purposefully, there are also systems for social stratification. And so
which would take
That's
precedence? Equity or excellence? Or can you pursue both at
you can't
exactly the same
have
time?
one without the other.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Also, I wanted to thank you because when I opened the Zoom screen, seeing you has made me feel more comfortable. So thank you.
It must be because of my handsome face.
Okay, John. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Assemblyman Meeks, followed by Senator Broke.
All right. Hello, Dr. Kawaki O'Connor. Just want to pose a question. I'm trying to make it sort of a standard question for myself. Can you explain how individual, institutional, and structural racism has impacted education historically and how it is still manifested today?
It's manifested in so many ways. It's manifested in the way that our housing is structured, the way in which our health outcomes are, our income, the income disparity. And one of the things that I have not heard enough of is the curriculum that is taught in the schools. Structural racism has impacted what is being taught in the schools. And, it's February and now, people are excited about Black History Month, but we really have to start saying not just February. Black history is U.S. history. It needs to be embedded throughout the curriculum, and not just in social studies, and not just about racism, but looking at the contributions of Black excellence throughout history, the contribution of Asian excellence, Asian American excellence throughout U.S. history. And so I think one of the biggest challenges that we have seen historical racism and structural systemic racism affecting education is in what we are meant to learn, what we are meant to know in the curriculum.
Thank you, Assemblyman Meeks. And we'll move on to Senator Broke. No, you're Senator.
Yes, I'm
Stavisky.
here. Sorry about that.
There you are.
Just doing some train zooming. Hi, everyone. Good morning. And thank you for joining us. I just had a question, Dr. Kawaki O'Connor, about mental health. So I am the chair of the Mental Health Committee in the Senate. And one thing that we've talked a lot about is the effect that it's going to have on students specifically and teachers specifically, or all school staff. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about what you see the role as a regent playing when we think about, the exacerbated effects that this has had on some of our students over others, but really something that has affected probably everyone at some point. Can you talk about what kind of role you think you might play in helping to help or get our kids back on track and our teachers the support that they need?
Thank you. And I think I appreciate that question. It's not just the pandemic. I think this was something that has been long coming, and it has really exacerbated with the pandemic. And so one of the things that I think schools' role in thinking about mental health for the community is really going back to thinking about senses of belonging, trust, relationship building, and the culture and climate, and the ability to converse and talk across difference without having that become some kind of judgment on people's worth. And so I think that those are some of the areas that I think schools can play an integral role when we're talking about outcomes, being able to have conversations, civil, engaged conversations where we are presenting different values, where we are listening to one another and we're acknowledging each other and acknowledging each other's humanity really in the listening. I think these are some of the very big ideas behind thinking about mental health. We all need a sense of belonging. We all need a sense of worth. And so I think those are some of the areas that actually schools can do a lot. We do a pretty good job like in elementary school. And then we suddenly sort of veer off middle school and high school. So.
Thank you, Senator Brooke. Assemblyman Jensen, followed by Assemblyman Bronson.
Thank you, Chairman. Doctor, thank you for joining us today in your application to be a member of the Regents. Just a quick question from me. Do you think our school system, particularly in high school, our curriculum is doing enough to educate and prepare students for life outside of school, talking about issues like financial literacy, preparing for the job market, career pathways other than higher education? And if not, what do you think schools should be doing?
Thank you so much for this question. I had just been thinking about an issue that has not come up enough is a robust alternative to college for high school graduates. There are so many pathways that we could emphasize and take opportunity and capitalize on earlier on in high school, and really value the diversity of the ways in which we can continue on beyond high school. And so I don't actually think that there are things that we're taught enough of in high school. We are very stuck on some of the canon curriculum, but like you said, financial literacy, health literacy, I would even go as far as like car insurance and plumbing issues and I mean there are many things that are and even civic engagement. How do you engage in advocacy in your community to advocate for yourself and for your family? I think those are some of the things that we haven't done enough of, and I think it's hurting a huge population. Just to be thinking about just trying to push everybody towards college.
Thank you. Assemblyman Bronson, followed by Senator Stravitsky.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kawaku O'Connor, for being here and for volunteering. It's a pleasure to have you here. Assemblymember Meeks asked the question I've been asking of every other candidate, and that has to do with racial justice in our schools, and in particular the Rochester City School District. So, and you answered that quite well. Thank you. Let me ask you it this way: And I'm honing in on Rochester City School District, although obviously as a region from the 7th Judicial District, you're going to represent a lot of different school districts. But in connection with Rochester, how do you see the interplay of our health services, our mental health services, the question you just answered, human services and education? How do you see that interplay and making sure that our Black and Brown students get the quality education that they deserve?
Thank you for that question. So I had mentioned earlier that I've had the privilege of doing the evaluation for School 17 community school implementation, as well as the early stage of School 33 community school implementation. And one of the things that I always hear, because we actually, despite maybe a misrepresentation, we do incredible amount of focus groups and interviews and door-to-door sort of asking neighbors and community members. And a lot of the issues are is very structural. So I think one of the challenges that we see is when with community schools is that we bring in community partners that attend to the needs of the students. But really the challenges that the students are facing in terms of attendance and health have a lot to do with housing and then employment opportunities and transportation. And oftentimes those are not partnerships that are being included in the community school partners because they're not thought of as agencies that work with students. And so I think that there's an opportunity for collaboration with some of these other agencies for really collective impact. But I think it has to go beyond sort of just the immediate needs of the students. Because as you know, we have a high mobility rate in the Rochester City School System. It has a lot to do with housing. We have a lot of transportation issues. The majority of parents whose children are chronically absent talk about the difficulty with transportation and not wanting to let their kids walk to school since they don't get bus service if they're within 1.5 miles. So if you have a kindergartner and you also are taking care of your newly born infant and a 3-year-old, getting them dressed and walking them 2 miles down the street to school is in the winter is a real challenge. And so there are ways in really collaborating with these different governmental structures that can help students be ready to learn and be ready to go to school.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Senator Stravinsky, followed by Assemblywoman Clark to close, most probably. Senator?
Thank you. Yeah. Mike, you said, and I just want to, do you want to finish the sentence?
No, go right ahead.
Oh.
No.
Okay. Professor, thank you for your participation. I noticed that you have a master's degree in education with a focus on higher education. How do you see the role of the regents? They play a significant role in higher education as well, in achieving some of the objectives that we all want to see, whether it be degrees that matter, whether it be the office of the professions, etc.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes, I said that I noticed you have a master's degree in higher education and a great deal of experience in evaluations. How do you see your role in higher education as under the purview of the regents? Because they do play a role. People don't realize the role that they play in higher education. And I chair the committee, which is why I'm asking you for your reaction on what additional areas can the regents help higher education, not only the colleges and universities, but also the professions, the 54 professions that are regulated by the state education department.
It's a good question. So my focus in higher education was primarily around access to higher education. And I always talk about how I actually am really interested in values and money. So access to higher education in terms of financial aid. I was a financial aid counselor for a while in New Orleans. And so looking at the financial aid burden on individuals in even the credentialing system is an area that I know that you guys have looked at and could also play a role in the professions. There's, capital begets capital. And so there are many barriers to getting credentialing and certifications. And the more you have, the more you can get. And so looking at those pipelines, I think would be really important. In addition to that, I think that it would be helpful to have almost like micro credentialings. So I was just thinking about this recently because we have these steps for teachers to become teachers, and we have steps for nurses to become nurses and technicians. So, but in terms of the people who work with students and children, there aren't a robust tier of training that really work with students. And Elaine, Dr. Spall was talking about this in terms of understanding culturally responsive pedagogy as nonprofit, staff, thinking about restorative practice, thinking about trauma-informed learning. There are these opportunities for training that can happen that for a population that I think we haven't really been attending to. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think that might be an opportunity to look.
Particularly, I'm interested in what you said is access to higher education. To me, that is half of the whole system, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
accessibility.
Senator.
And accessibility.
Accessibility. Yeah. Thank you.
And we go to Assemblywoman Clark, who looks like to close.
Excellent. I won't say who I'm on the train with, but it may have been someone who already spoke today. Thank you, Dr. Kwaku O'Connor, for your interest in this position and giving time to us to talk about who you are. We talk a lot about the city school district. We talk a lot about the extra resources and the things that we need to make that a good district. I want to hear your thoughts on the fact that regardless of all of that, we have some of the most segregated schools in our county and in the state. What do you think are some ideas that could actually break down the segregation piece and we could have a much more integrated school system in our county and other places across the state as well?
That's a good question. It's a complicated question. It's become more and more clear to me that forced integration may not actually be the answer. But what we need to do is act, much like we talk about, systems in this larger system, we have to look at the places where we haven't created systems that allows for this. So instead of just looking at Rochester City school systems, I think we have to look at suburban districts and more homogeneous school districts in which, if integrated, all students can actually thrive. So I'm a big proponent currently of ensuring that teachers are trained and educated and armed with the confidence and ability and the knowledge to be able to discuss issues around equity and racism, be able to intervene in situations where it may previously been uncomfortable for people to intervene because people didn't know what to say. And so really creating an environment in the suburban school districts, in the predominantly white school districts, to ensure that all students are going to be welcomed. So families will feel they can move into different school districts and have access to some of the resources in those districts and in those suburban areas. I think that's going to be critical. It's going to be critical work before we start talking about integration. I think we need to change. As I live in the suburbs, I live in a predominantly white suburb. I live in the Pittsford School District, in the town of Pittsford. And, it really is upon us to make sure that we create an environment that's going to be in a place where not only we can eradicate racism, but actually make it a place where everyone can flourish. Because the goal is not to just talk about racism and be anti-racist. It's actually to create places where people feel liberated, and not just, Black and brown and yellow children, but all white children. Like every child feels liberated to reach their potential and be introduced to things that they didn't even realize, or things that they can be exposed to and introduced to. So I think that's some of the things that we have a responsibility in the surrounding schools districts of the Rochester City School to prepare ourselves and do the work ourselves initially before or simultaneously, really. Like I said, there's no silver bullet and things have to be done all at the same time. But that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Assemblywoman Clark, thank you very much. Dr. Kawaku O'Connor, we thank you very much for your time, for answering the questions and answering them so well and intelligently. And this ends our session. And certainly we will be contacting you, I guess, very quickly, because this has to be decided very quickly. So again, thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for your service. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, we're up next and only 50 minutes behind schedule here as we progress in our day. And we are with Miss Gail Tiley, who has applied for the at-large position. Ms. Tiley, I am Assemblyman Mike Benedetto. I'm chair of the Education Committee, and I'm joined with a number of other colleagues, senators, assemblymen, women who will ask you questions. We ask you just to start by giving us a short 2-minute or so introduction to yourself and your philosophy, and then we will probe by answering some questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name's Gail Tylek. I'd like to thank the Senate and Assembly members for taking time to interview the candidates today. Joining a team of professionals with a common vision would serve as the perfect next step after my recent retirement from Niagara Community College. Having taught in the public school system prior to my 31-year career at NCC, I'm very eager to bring my life and professional experiences to the New York State Board of Regents. I'm a data-driven decision maker who assimilates and interprets information to make meaningful policy and program modifications that have yielded positive impact on student engagement and retention. As I progress through the positions of faculty to division chair to interim vice president of academic affairs, I accumulated knowledge and experience that shaped me into a more compassionate, student-centered educator and mentor. I believe strongly in process, and I've demonstrated that belief in my various roles as faculty senate vice president, chair of the curriculum committee, and most recently as Senate parliamentarian. I brought innovative SUNY initiatives to the college, such as the Quantway Mathematics program that yielded increases in student persistence and retention, while supporting the goal of the chancellor to create effective learning pathways. During the 8 months that I served as interim vice president of academic affairs, I initiated the updated the academic plan, reconfigured both the grants and workforce development divisions, and expanded the academic council to ensure a seamless programming from the non-credit workforce programs into the credit-bearing divisions and departments. Within 2 years, the Workforce Development Office nearly doubled their programming while making it a priority to expand adult education and training that could scaffold into future college certificates and degrees. I'm also committed to my community and serve as an active volunteer on multiple advisory boards. I served as the co-founder and first director of the Niagara Frontier Girls Junior Olympic Volleyball Club, which serves over 500 youth athletes in Western New York. In my role as director, I ensured that the athletes were engaged in community outreach to instill a sense of civic responsibility while developing the whole athlete to become a more responsible member of our community. In closing, the New York State Regents have a rich history in making policy recommendations that have resulted in New York being cited as one of the best educational systems in our country. It's my hope to bring relevant strategies to support educational success for all members of our community in these unprecedented times. I believe that strengthening the educational system within New York State will have a significant impact on our region's economic vitality and cultural future. By ensuring quality education, we're ensuring quality communities. Thank you.
Ms. Tylek, I thank you for your opening statement and the conciseness of it. I apologize for pronouncing your last name wrong, okay?
It's always been Tyler or
right?
some variation.
Okay. Listen, let me start off the questioning by asking you a question about interpreting current affairs and how do we do that in our society. We have been students, people in general have been inundated with so many different sources of information, so much of which have been proven to be false information and people coming to wrong conclusions. Any thoughts on how we combat that and educate our children to be objective thinkers?
Well, I think that what we lack right now, or what we need to support more of, is developing critical thinking skills in students. And I'm going to go back to the Quantway math program. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It's for developmental students, and it's a different method of flipping a college classroom around so that the teacher does not instruct or give the answers. The teacher introduces a mathematical concept. Students break down into groups, and they must use critical thinking for 15 minutes to come up with their own solution to the problem. The teacher then engages these groups to share what they explored and found out using critical thinking skills. And then the teacher then addresses the best example that was used and tries to expand on it. Now, I'll tell you something, when we brought that in, just picture changing a teacher's methodology of instruction that they've been using for 30 or 35 years to now flip a classroom where you're trying to develop critical thinkers. It's hard. You're looking for successes. But I think we need to translate that, and we can easily translate that back to the public schools. So if students are given the opportunity to debate using data and have small scale discussions, I think that's a step in the right direction.
An interesting answer. It would require, on the teacher's part, an awful lot of pre-preparation to handle that situation.
Yes, but more, you know what, there's more and more areas now that I became involved with the Carnegie Foundation and the Quantway process. There's more and more agencies that are developing these type of lesson plans to support teachers in creating these lessons for their classrooms.
Thank you very much for your answer. Senator Mayer, Chair of the Senate Education Committee, you have a question.
Yes, briefly. First, please, thank you, Ms. Tyler, for being here. I'm so excited about your focus on girls in sports and the fact that's been part of your lifelong professional and probably personal experience. Would you, if you were on the regions, would you have recommendations on how to strengthen girls' sports programs, particularly in communities, some of the communities I represent that where girls have other responsibilities at home, particularly taking care of younger siblings or parents that are working and are not home? How would you ensure that we do a better job of encouraging girls to be involved in sports and other physical activities from a young age and continuing through high school?
Yeah, the Girl in Sports program is that, and I'll have to tell you, I was blessed 15 years ago when I was running the volleyball club to have Mary Wilson, the former owner of the Buffalo Bills, reach out to me to ask if I'd serve on the advisory board. And we brainstormed and came up with a model that we're still using today. I'm still involved in the Girl in Sports program, where the volleyball club, we take the girls from the club, bring them into these events. where we not only allow these young girls, it's girls 12 and under, we're getting them at the start, getting them engaged in physical activity, but also they're allowed to bring their parents and their siblings to watch them, to create more of a community environment, so that the younger siblings can see what they're doing. We also introduce self-esteem and leadership training. As a result of this, I was able to secure a grant, I'm sure you saw that, from the Wilson Foundation. Because of the success that I had at the volleyball station, I'm now infusing that programming using college students from Niagara Community College, Niagara University, and now Buffalo State to go into North Tonawanda and Niagara Falls elementary schools with a comprehensive program over 6 weeks, where these students are exposed to, it's volleyball because that's my sport, and leadership training, anti-bullying, all is part of this after-school program, which culminates with a friendship tournament from all the schools at Niagara Community College. And one of the outcomes I did not list when I originally submitted that grant, that I found out about afterwards from the principal, was that on Mondays and Wednesdays for those 6 weeks, no one missed school. They wanted so badly to be at the after-school program. He said retention of those girls during the 6 weeks was phenomenal. So I added that into my subsequent grant request and said, keeping these kids in school, giving them an incentive to stay in school, and provide an opportunity for all the girls to experience success in a non-competitive friendship environment. It really is a great program, and thank you for knowing that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. To the Assembly, Assemblyman Walsick.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got 3 quick questions. Thanks for throwing your hat in the ring here. What time do you think high school should begin? What do you think the ideal temperature for a classroom is? And why should students say the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay, school start, temperature, pledge.
Yes, ma'am.
Writing it down. School temperature, it's so funny you're asking that. It probably could lead to my husband and my divorce, because I'm a 72 degrees, he's a 65 degree. And as that temperature goes down, my irritability on the other end of the scale goes up. So there is an ideal temperature. And I said, I did teach in the public schools in North Tonawanda, and my building did not have air conditioning. Running those fans with the open windows in the month of June, when it's 85 and 90 degrees, not only disrupted learning because you couldn't hear, but papers were flying all over the room. So, I know I'm going that there needs to be a solution, but ideally, I think effective temperatures are supposed to be between 72 and 75 degrees. There are certain parameters. So I think striving for that, or changing the environment. Maybe you can't afford air conditioning for the entire school, but you could rotate classes, might be a solution, so that students aren't always in those hot environments. So that's school temperature, which was your second question. So I'd say 72. School start is I don't think it's as difficult as it used to be, because busing in many of the school districts is the reason that they stagger the start of the day. So elementary school, middle school, high school, all those students need 10 hours a day of sleep, but the middle school and high school students are the ones that are in after school activities, playing sports. Almost all of the high school students have part-time jobs, coming back to do more rigorous homework. I know I have 3 children, and if they ever went to sleep, they're young adults now, but if they went to sleep before midnight, it was a miracle. Using the 10-hour sleep theory, it should be 10 o'clock in the morning. Our school district starts at 7:45. So I think the late bell rings at 8:01, something like that. But if we could flip and move the elementary school children back, not they don't need the sleep, but they can get to bed at 9 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock at night. They're not working jobs. I think it's a recommendation that the regions could make. And finally, that's a good question about the pledge, especially the past 2 years that we've had. Since the early 40s, the First Amendment right said that students were not required to say the pledge. They could not be forced to say the pledge. But I know recently, I'm trying to think of the phrases of liberty and justice for all might seem like hollow words right now to certain individuals in our population, being forced to articulate those words. But again, being somebody that advocates critical thinking, wouldn't that be a wonderful exercise for classroom instructors to engage in a debate where students go back and discuss this issue with their families, with their friends, and they bring these compelling arguments to the forefront, and the class makes a decision and allows students, the opportunity to follow through with what they believe. It's very difficult because, I'm a child of the 70s, and you recite the pledge anywhere, I'm stopping where I am. My hand's going to my heart if I hear the pledge or, the national anthem. But these are moments that teachers just can't govern what the students are doing. I think they need to start making well-informed choices.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Assemblyman Smith, followed by Assemblyman Meeks, maybe to close.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you for joining us and your comments. Two things that you hit on, which I think are critical, no pun intended, but critical thinking skills, which is something we certainly need more of. And I know when I was an educator, that was something that I was really focused on as a math teacher. How do you get students to use what they know to figure out what they don't know? And then you talked about compelling attendance, which through a creative way. And if you look at it, one of the biggest indicators of student success is actually based on their attendance. Students that attend school are generally more successful than those who miss a lot of class. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. So two things: how do we measure whether or not we're able to teach critical thinking skills? Do you have any thoughts on that? And then what other ideas could you bring to the Board of Regents where we might actually be able to incentivize attendance? Are we missing something? And again, those are two things that very probably local issues, but what can we do at the Regents level?
Well, I'm going to go to your second question first, if that's okay.
Please.
I read an article, and I wish I could remember where, that relevance to school is the reason that most urban students drop out. It's one of the most significant reasons. They don't find relevance to what they're doing in the classroom. Why am I here? And I believe it's because when I did some research, there wasn't the applied learning opportunities, meaningful applied learning in the urban schools. For whatever reason it was, these students were not taking trips to local hospitals and participating in internships and having these relevant opportunities. I think that the urban schools, if they developed advisory boards like we have at the college, that are not just students, teachers, parents, but also community leaders. And this is I'm always about the getting the most bang for your buck. Not only would they be able to come in and give advice, as an advisory board member should, they're going to be providing internships. At the college, my advisory board, I expect them to take my students as interns. The teachers that are on my advisory board, that's where my field placement students are attending, and they end up offering them jobs. The minute that you can get students, and I'm not just saying high school, elementary school students, to go out into the community and see what's going to be capable, it's going to make their education more relevant. It's going to spark an interest in continuing. So hopefully.
Thank you. And I think that also probably speaks to the critical thinking, because if you have that engagement of students asking questions, that builds critical thinking. Thank you for your thoughts.
100%. Thanks.
Thank you, Assemblyman Speaks. Assemblyman Meeks.
Thank you, Speaker. No, thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Gail, this question is something that I've been posing to everyone on today. And can you explain how individual, institutional, and structural racism has impacted education historically and how it is still manifested today?
Yeah, I'm a member of the Equity and Diversity Committee at the college, and I do have to say, for years the committee had not done a stellar job. So when I took over as director of the Faculty Resource Center the last 2 years before I retired, one of the decisions I made was to really partner with the Equity and Diversity Committee. And what we did was expand programming so that when we held our sessions and held our activities, it was students, faculty, and administrators alike. One of the programs that we introduced, and I will tell you, because it was the first time there was a significant impact, we recruited a group from a Rochester theater group that does diversity workshops, brought it into our theater, and it was profound. They set up scenarios of a classroom, but they would freeze frame and interact with the audience and let the audience explain what the next step should be. What should the teacher do? What should the student responses be? It had such an impact. It was remarkable. And then they would continue on with the play. That was the first time that I think we got feedback from faculty, students, and administrators that they got it. They understood what students were going through, because you had students from the audience filling in the end of the sessions. We followed that up with bi-monthly, twice a month, TED Talk sessions in the Faculty Resource Center with brown bag lunches. Everybody just brought their lunch. We would watch a TED Talk followed by a controlled discussion with oftentimes an idea that initiated, like one of them that comes to mind immediately was to create a mosaic for our hallway where faculty, administrators, students created the mosaic and the signs. So I think it's a constant battle. And I think it's constant battle at the college because a lot of times I've seen the verbiage of trying to move towards a more equitable and diverse faculty, but the tangibles we're still working on. Even small strides, a recommendation I have made is when we're hiring, not just to put the diversity statement, but saying in the next 5 years, we are striving for a 10% or 20% increase in our diversity of our current full-time faculty. Post the diversity numbers on the website, you're accountable then. Because, you know, the students need to see people that are like them, whether it's the gay, lesbian, transgender community, you know, the African-American cultural, students need to see themselves.
Thank you, Assemblyman Meeks. It seems like Senator Lieu has left us because he had a question. So then this will.
I didn't leave you. I'm right here, but I figure I'll pass for now.
That's quite all right, John. It's your privilege. Ms. Tyler, we thank you very much for your time. We thank you very much for your patience and waiting for your time to come up. And we thank you also for answering the questions so well and so patiently. We appreciate it. We will be in touch with you rather shortly as to our decision on this matter, and we wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
Good day now.
Well, bye.
Okay, moving straight on with our interviews. We're going to have a Ms. Ruth Turner, who is for District 7, the Rochester area regent. Is Ms. Turner still with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Ms. Turner, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very well. My name is Assemblyman Mike Benedetto. I'm chairman of the Assembly Education Committee, and I'm joined by various members of the Senate and the Assembly today interviewing the regents. We ask that you take some time, maybe about 2 minutes or so, just telling us about yourself and about your philosophy, and then that will be followed by a question answer period of all people who wish to ask questions. It's kind of a relaxing dialogue, question and answer. So it's nothing to be too excited or too nervous about. And why don't you begin when you're ready?
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you all for affording me this opportunity. I have been a fierce advocate for quality education for as long as I can remember. This is largely due to my upbringing and personal experiences. My family fled our war-torn country, Eritrea, which is located in the Horn of Africa, when I was a young child. We arrived in New York City after spending about a year in a refugee camp in Sudan. We arrived with very limited material resources, but full of hope of the possibility that awaits us. Our parents instilled in us, me, my siblings, the importance of education and better yet, a public education. You see, in my native country, only those who can afford education were able to attend school. I attended New York City public schools until midway through my high school years, and my family and I relocated to Rochester, New York, where I completed my high school education and graduated from the Rochester City School District. I was the first in my family to attend college. I went on to get my bachelor's degree and 2 master's degree. After graduating with my bachelor's degree, I worked for a local non-for-profit agency as a community social worker. This experience allowed me to see deeply as I spent many hours with families, primarily families in poverty, and recognized the experiences that many had, which was a lack of education and a lack of resources and opportunity. I decided to join the education arena as a school social worker. During my tenure, I worked to help educate both families and school staff on the importance of social emotional learning and developed many effective practices that help to build community, decrease negative behavior, and improve some academic outcomes for students. I went on to get my educational leadership degree and served as an administrator during my tenure as Director of Student Support Services, Executive Director of Student Support Services, and Chief of Social Emotional Learning for 2 years. We developed and implemented practices such as restorative practice, help zones and reflection rooms, student leadership development, and aimed to disrupt the school to prison pipeline. We worked long and hard to address the longstanding history of institutional and systemic racism that impacted students and school climate. So from my experience as a student, as a school social worker, and as an administrator, I feel confident that I'm uniquely positioned to serve as a regent, especially at a time when innovation, focus on mental health, and ESL is so critical. Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful tool which we have to use to change the world. And I wholeheartedly and passionately believe this to be true. Again, thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for that opening statement. Let me just ask you a question. Where did you live when you lived in New York City? Do you remember?
Oh, of course. I lived there for Far Rockaway, Queens.
Oh, okay. It's not my district, so, but maybe that's of interest in some of our members. Listen, tell me what you think about how do you educate students to become objective thinkers, to evaluate the news and issues in the news in this world where we no longer just get news from TV and some newspapers. We get them from the internet and sometimes phony sources. What would you advocate as a region to help in this area?
I really believe that part of our role as educators and endeavoring to educate young minds is to develop critical thinking skills. So I think really focusing on allowing and trusting students' ability to learn, formulate ideas, and create spaces where they feel that they are able and welcome to share their perspectives. A great deal of putting trust in the ability of students to formulate ideas and empowering them to do so. I think that's our job as an educational system, and as a region, that would be really important for me to ensure that we really understand and believe in the capacity of our students to evolve, to learn, and to grow, and to be critical thinkers. And I think part of that is not necessarily giving the answers or feeding them the ideas in which we want them to have, but really teaching them and allowing to hear their own authentic voice and reasoning. And I think allowing them and empowering them to feel like that is acceptable and that they have the capacity to self-determine, to formulate ideas, to think for themselves.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to Senator Cooney.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome, Ruth. It's great to see you here.
Thank
I'm glad that you are no longer in Far Rockaway, Queens. We're glad you're here in Rochester.
Thank you, sir.
You bring that experience. So you have a unique candidacy because you've been inside and working within the system, as well as have deep community connections as a whole, not just in Rochester, but beyond. And so if you could talk a little bit about, I think, the frustration that is felt in our community for the educational system as a whole. It's not about personal relationships with one administrator or principal or teacher, but more so the system that has let down generations of students and parents and families in the 7th Judicial District or the Greater Rochester region. Could you kind of talk about how your experience as an insider could help you participate as kind of in the Board of Regents on a statewide level to help validate and remedy some of these concerns?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really such a profound question. And not only as somebody who's worked in the system, but I was also a student, right? A byproduct of the system. I think there's so many areas in which we can leverage, right, to improve student outcome, to build a sense of community that oftentimes we have failed to do for various reasons. Even when this opportunity presented itself, initially, it was not something that I was eager about until I heard from so many community members who share with me how they would support me in this work, because I am very passionate. I'm personally, right, my team, I had a small area within the school district, and we were able to show some great outcomes, right? Really understanding our particular population, our students, the need for social emotional support, the need for high demand with high level of support. And whenever we were able to do that, we saw great outcomes. But yet it was always a competition when it came to funding, right? Do we fund academic outcomes per se, or do we fund the social emotional aspect, not realizing that they really are hand in glove, and oftentimes felt like we had to fight, right, in terms of what we decided to fund and what we could not fund, which was often very frustrating each year when it came to that. So I think, number one, trusting in the voice of the community to solve its own problem, and that the issue is not just K-12 education, but it's also housing, right? Students' mental health, families' mental health, especially during the pandemic, and really realizing that it's going to take every aspect of the community to address and improve public education.
Thank you, Senator. Assemblywoman Clark, followed by Senator Stavitsky.
Hello, Ruth. So good to see your smiling face. And
Hi.
other than my full desire to have restorative practices throughout every single district, wondering your thoughts on just, we talk a lot about fixing within the district, fixing the problems every school district has, the extreme poverty we have in the city school district. But what are your thoughts about just how segregated our schools are? How if you just go a few blocks out of the city, you have a completely different district oftentimes, and what we can do to sort of break those barriers down and maybe have a more integrated school district across the county, integrated school districts.
Yeah, thank you for that. I worked for a couple of years on a pilot with SED actually around looking at the segregation issue in terms of our education within our particular school district, but also in New York State. And it's a really complex issue that is deeply rooted, right, in what I believe to be historical and systemic racism, implicit bias, and realizing that benefits not only students of color, but everyone, and the importance of that. But I think we have to really do the initial work of really understanding why have we chosen to be segregated, right, in our schooling and in our housing, where we decide to live, where we decide to send our students, and prepare a system, right? And I think oftentimes we talk about more integration in our schools, whether it's racial integration, social economic integration, without really preparing the environment so that students who are in that environment are feeling supported and not feeling as if that is detrimental to their social emotional health because they don't feel accepted in that particular environment. So I think we have a lot of work to do as a community, I don't believe it's impossible, but I really believe that it is a larger picture, and we need to involve all segments of the community to really look at what are some of those historical barriers that yet exist that do not allow us to truly be integrated in terms of racial integration, social economic integration on every level. I'm not sure, Sarah, if that answered your question, but that is my thinking.
Well, it's definitely a start, and I feel like it's not a question easily answered in, in an interview, but I appreciate everything you said. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Clark. Let's go to Senator Stavitsky, chairperson of the Senate Higher Education Committee.
Thank you. And I must say, I'm beginning to think we ought to have more than one region from Rochester, because everybody has been, I think, very, very informative and sensitive to the needs of the Rochester community, as well as the surrounding counties. And I must tell you that I represent the other end of Queens County. A large area, central and eastern and northern Queens. And if you remember back to your days in Far Rockaway, you understand how diverse Queens County is, with the number of immigrant young people coming to our country and settling in Queens. And you bring a very compelling story of your immigration to the United States. And you replicate this with so many different stories, particularly in Queens County. How, as a regent, would you make changes to make that pathway easier for young people and older people to come and become part of our communities?
Well, I remember, I think I must have been in the first grade and not knowing a word of English. And I remember as a child, I still remember to this day being, just terrified, not being able to, express myself in English and be able to even raise my hand to go to the bathroom and so forth. And it was really, really difficult for me, and understanding the importance, right? Particularly when we talk about, individuals who are not native to this country, or English may not be the first language. So the challenge of having to learn a new language and to acclimate yourself to a culture that is foreign to you, and having those supports in schools were so essential, right? It was actually the only place where we really got the support, not only to learn the language, but also to just really learn how to make new friends, right? How to immerse yourself in a culture that's different from yours, but yet still maintain, right, ties to your own particular culture. So school was very instrumental in helping, myself, my siblings, and my family, and so many others do that. And I think recognizing, right, and supporting those policies and practices that allow students who English is not their native language, right, to have those additional supports would ensure their success.
In Queens, for example, we have several hundred different languages and dialects spoken. How I chair the Committee on Higher Education. How can we adapt to making college, in addition to the Peralta Dream Act? Can you think of any other areas where we can make higher education more accessible for the immigrant community?
I can definitely speak to my personal experience. I was an EOP student, and I would not have been able to attend college because I honestly did not have the grades, and I certainly didn't have the finances. And it was because of this program that I was able to go to college and get the additional supports that I needed so I can be successful during my tenure in college. So I think having programs like that are really instrumental, because oftentimes, if you feel like you don't have those super great grades to get into college, that's first challenge. And the second challenge is being able to afford a higher education. So for me, being able to go to school and not worry about affording schools, and yet having those academic supports that I needed, as a college student, to help me really immerse myself and have a more rigorous experience in terms of college writing and so forth, was very instrumental for my success. not only the academic piece, but those counselors during EOP became my family, became my supporter, especially as an African-American person attending a primarily white institution. I mean, I left a community of mostly, folks that were African-American or Latinos, and now I was in a school, Nazareth College in Rochester, and there were many, many barriers that I had to overcome. But because I had those counselors and support during EOP who encouraged me to, stay in college and finish and be successful, that was really important for me. And I would love to see, efforts like that continue and increase for all students, particularly students who are economically disadvantaged or may not have necessarily those grades, right, that will get them into college.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Moving to Assemblyman Bronson, followed by Senator Burke.
Hello, Ruth. Thanks for being here, and thanks for all you've done for our community thus far. And I know you're looking forward to this volunteer opportunity as well. Let me ask you this. You're very familiar with the Rochester City School District. You're familiar with some of the extreme barriers that it has as a district. Unfortunately, we're one of the school districts that has so many schools that are in receivership, struggling schools, and we've had a lot of conversations with other candidates in connection with the racism that is the basis for a lot of that. And it intrigued me, the opening of your resume talked about being student-centered, forward-thinking leader, and a team builder who can, build trust, foster trust among diverse groups so that we have common interests. Could you, in the context in particular of the structural and institutional racism, not only at the educational level, but the healthcare, the nutrition, and we can go on and on. We see it so prevalent in our community. Explain how that team builder, building trust among diverse, how do you see that playing out in particular with the Rochester City School District?
No, thank you. I mean, relationships are really important, right? And I always say you can understand a person without necessarily agreeing with them. And I think having a deep understanding, all right, and that's what restorative practice philosophies allows us to do, is to listen to one another, right? And sometimes those stance and perspectives are rooted in fear, right? And recognizing that. But even when I think about the work in the district and in the community in which I live in, I was the first one to push for implicit bias workshops for all the staff in the Rochester City School District, the first time that was ever done, in which we used a superintendent conference day to begin to talk about those implicit bias, right? Starting there and how they impact our teaching and pedagogies and our interaction with students, and began to do a lot of great work with having dialogues around those things that separate us in terms of recognizing that our teaching faculty, 85% of them lived in the suburbs, 85% of them were Caucasian individuals coming into the city of Rochester to teach mostly Black and brown children, and just really doing that reflective work inwardly, right? To where did I learn these things and be able to confront them. And we, for about 3 years, started doing some great work around that. And like I said, relations are important to me. So I'm able to, and I have been able to sit at a table with many different leaders, right? And be able to hear people and also garnish the respect of people to hear my perspective. But we have to first do that internal self-reflection, and then we have to look at our systems and not be afraid to call it out for what it is. And I think oftentimes it's been that fear, right, of saying the hard work, of addressing, racism, that has often hindered our inability to have the discussion, to raise it up to our level of self-awareness so that we can begin to dismantle and really address it. But I also recognize that, oftentimes when there is privilege attached to it, right, as Frederick Douglass said, you have to oftentimes make a demand of that for the sake of our community and our children, because ultimately, right, especially when we think about schools and primarily in urban school districts where we see that clear pipeline, right, to prison, it is our moral obligation to interrupt it, right, and figure out what is it about that we can't get wrong. And oftentimes we look at our students in a deficit model when it's really been those systems, right, that have prevented and created those barriers so that they did not have equal opportunity and access to achieve as their counterparts.
Thank you. And one follow-up question. So, we've had a debate for the last couple of years about transformative change in the school district and how do you achieve that? And that's really was the foundation of which I asked that question. The follow-up question is this: do you ever see a scenario where you think that the state should actually come in, remove elected school board members, and take over the school and control the school?
Oh, you just went right to that hard question right away.
Well,
I have to, I'm always a very honest person. I really believe in the democratic process, right? I believe in a community to choose its leaders. I think we need to focus on the answers are within the community. I've seen it over and over again. Even in my work, the answers are within our students. And I think that I'm not sure of any model, and maybe somebody can correct me, but in my studies where that has necessarily been an effective model for improving education. So I hope that answers your question, but I'm a firm believer in a democratic process and allowing the community, right, to choose those representatives and be able to make those changes that they need within the community. I think the issue primarily in Rochester has been is that we've not empowered our community. We've not listened to the voice of our community in the way that we should. Even I think about town hall meetings, our parents, our students, I've done tons of student leadership development with the city school district and our suburban counterparts. And when you bring students and present them with a problem, they have solutions. They have some great ideas, but oftentimes we don't elevate their voice, right? And to say, oh, this is actually a great idea. Let's implement this, because we look at them in a deficit model or feel like, what does a 16, 15, 14-year-old know about changing education when they know a lot? So that's really my philosophy and thought about that.
Thank you, Ruth. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Harry. Let's go to Senator Burke, followed by Assemblyman Smith. Senator, are you out there? Yes, she is. You are muted right now. Senator, we're not hearing you. Oh.
You may not be getting good range. We could come back to her possibly.
Yeah, we'll do that. Don't be too impatient now, Assemblyman. Yeah, I think which speaks to the problems of broadband connection and education, doesn't it? Okay, listen, we'll come back to the senator. Senator, if you hear me, hang on. We'll come back to you later. And we'll go to Assemblyman Smith.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Turner, for spending some time with us, answering some questions. What would you say in a brief period of time would be like your philosophy of education? Some just brief tenets. And you've outlined a lot so far, but what are your thoughts on?
Yeah, that is really a heavy question. So as quickly as precisely as
I recognize that. I know that's a.
Yeah, education. My philosophy in education, engaging student education is, and we mentioned this earlier, is to develop free thinkers, right? Individuals who can critically evaluate the world and those things around them. And I think that's the true essence of education is, and when you see that in a classroom, when you see that with students who are challenged, right? So I believe that education needs to have a high level of rigor and challenge, but equally a high level of support. Oftentimes it's one or the other. We either make a high demand of rigor without the appropriate supports, but I think hand in hand is the challenge of rigor at a high level, but also a high level of supports. And I've seen students become successful when we put those two formulas together.
Okay, that's great. And if I could just have one last thing, because that actually flows into another thought that was bouncing around in my head about just briefly evaluating teachers and evaluating students. Maybe you could talk about evaluating students.
Okay, are you talking about in terms, I'm not sure I understand, in terms of assessment or?
Oh, sorry. How do you think we evaluate students on making sure they are getting the content that we need to convey to them? Are we doing it appropriately? Could we be doing it differently?
Yeah, I think that is a really great question. And I think we need to look at evaluation assessment students on two levels. to a certain extent, right, we need some level of assessment tools, right, that gauges for students, even for their own self knowledge, exactly where they are in terms of, you know, being able to be on some level of grade level. The other aspect too is the thinking and the work that takes place in the classroom, right? That is aside from, let's say, state assessments. And I think that's creating opportunities, not only for those formative assessments, but allowing students to do student-led conferences, right? Allowing students to teach, which is a unique, even we've seen elementary kids being able to do it, right? When you empower them, and I think that's a different level of assessment. And oftentimes we put great stakes into the state assessments for various reasons. And I think we need to look at the whole child, not just how well do they do in the K-8 or the Regents exam, but how well are they doing, you know, in the ability, right, to critically think, you know, where is their understanding of the math process and so forth? Where is the readiness to engage in the world, or as a third grader to engage in fourth grade curriculum, fifth grade curriculum? So I think we need to look at it in a multi-dimensional way. And I think that primarily in education, we looked at even the way we evaluate teacher, how well did your third graders do in the state assessment, right? You're teaching global, how well did your students do in the Regents and so forth? And I think that gives us a small picture, but not the whole picture necessarily.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And now we go to Assemblyman Meeks, followed by Senator Lou.
Hey, thank you, Chair. Ms. Turner, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. So I pose this question. Can you explain how individual, institutional, and structural racism has impacted education historically and how it is still manifested today?
All right. I have about an hour. Well, definitely. When I think of, and again, I've had the great privilege in my role as a school social worker, not only to work with students, but teachers, principals, administrators. And, when we think about our own implicit bias, right, or our own understanding of the value that certain people and places have, that whether we're aware of it or not, it absolutely impacts our ability to teach students. So an example that I can think of might be in where we see a high rate of suspension, right? And primarily in communities of color, right? Because we have the sense that either we don't feel a level of safety with those students, right? Or perceive sometimes their action as being threatening. That's an example of a personal and also systemic biases that takes place in education. We've seen studies where over and over again, where teachers have perceived students of color, right, as behavior being more negative than their white counterparts in those experiments. So realizing that our own personal understanding of race and gender issues are certainly going to impact it. And then again, we have the institutional and systemic aspects of racism in which we see perpetuated over and over again in terms of the treatments that students of color get or how they're perceived in terms of their behavior in school, which leads to a higher rate of suspension and also out of school time. And so we see those practices in a lot of our school systems.
Thank you, Assemblyman Meeks. And we noticed that Senator Broke has returned. So I want to go to her before I go to Mr. Liu, if that is allowed. Senator, are you on?
I think you called me. Can you hear me now?
Yes, Senator.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I'll talk quickly before I lose service again. Thank you, Ruth, so much for being on. I've really enjoyed listening to your answers, mostly because I think we know that there are major changes and shifts that need to be made, and you seem to have a good grasp and understanding of what needs to happen to make those changes. And so I do want to just ask you about mental health specifically in my position as chair of the Mental Health Committee. And I'd like to hear what you think your role as a regent could be in helping support our students and our school staff, not just as we get out of this pandemic, but probably there have been longstanding issues and challenges that they have faced. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you think they might be able to be addressed.
Thank you. Absolutely. I've been really fortunate in my career to combine two passions, which is education and mental health. I'm a mental health practitioner and clinician, and are also responsible for many years providing mental health support for students and staff in the Rochester City School District. Really began to design programs around trauma responsive, right? Helping teachers understand ACEs and the impact of ACEs, and how to create a trauma responsive classroom so that all students have a sense of emotional safety in the classroom. And now we have this global pandemic, right? I can't tell you how many times I hear from teaching staff and students the impact that this pandemic is having on their mental health, and expanding mental health support in schools. I was really instrumental in the City School District, bringing our community mental health providers into the schools to provide those services for free, and allowing them to have space, right? And working with the Office of Mental Health to create the necessary credentials that were needed to have those spaces. And so understanding that the school becoming a hub for the community, in which, right, we have the students there. Oftentimes the families are more connected to the schools and are able to trust us in that process of helping serve not only their educational needs, but their mental health needs. Created programs for teachers during this pandemic, right? Looking at resiliency educator and rekindling the passion and practicing self-care as we pour out so much into our students. So it is definitely something that I am really passionate and excited about, and feel like I have the experience to be able to really be a thought partner with the regions around how do we provide those mental health services, how do we support schools and community during this difficult time and the time to come.
Senator, thank you very much. And Senator Liu, thank you for allowing me to insert the good senator in there. So to close, Senator John Liu.
Mr. Chairman, I am shocked. I am outraged that you would let Senator Brooks skip me. Because you know how much I don't want to follow Senator Brooks in anything, especially when she has something to say. So you put me in this situation. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, I'll move on. Thank you, Ms. Turner, for joining us and for putting yourself into this process. It's not an easy process. I have just, I think, a simple question for you, and that would be, where do you think the Regents exams still add value to the high school graduation process, or are they a vestige of the past?
You said a simple question. You know, we began to have that discussion in our community, and I think it was by invitation of the Regents to kind of get an idea of what the community thinking is. And many people, right, at least the folks that I spoke to, feel like we should not solely rely just on the Regents exams. I think we need to do more of a discussion and explore that idea a bit more, especially now as we begin to see, because of the pandemic, you know, exemptions for those exams. And I think really possibly revisiting what role they have. But I feel like we need more information. We need more dialogue, you know, in order for me to really make a determination. I have seen many, I have to be honest, especially from the students, many positive responses of, you know, having suspended the Regents exams the last couple of times. So I think it's worthwhile having that discussion again, and not just within the Regents, but within the community, around also with various scholars, and hearing students' voice around, you know, is it something that maybe this pandemic affords us the opportunity to do things differently? Is it still relevant? I think we need to explore that a bit more.
Thank you very much, Ms. Turner, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator, always thank you. Ms. Turner, we thank you so very much for being here today. We thank you for your time. We thank you for your very intelligent answers that you provided. We will be contacting you one way or the other very shortly about the results here today, but we wish you well and we wish you a good day. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, we come up to our very last person who is now seeking an at-large seat on the Board of Regents. And I know I'm going to destroy the name, but her name is Sylvia Smintek Gorek. Hopefully I got that fairly close. Miss Gorek around? Is she here?
I'm here.
Oh, Miss Gorek, and did I get the
You
name
did
halfway?
a remarkably good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for saying that. Listen, we are here today. I am Michael Benedetto. I'm Assemblyman, and I am Chair of the Assembly Education Committee. And I am with several assemblymen and assemblywomen and senators who will be participating today. We ask you to give a short presentation of who you are and try to confine it to about two minutes or so. And then we'll open the floor up for some questions to you. And it's a relaxed atmosphere, a simple question and answer conversation, more or less. And with that, I will turn that over to you.
All right. Thank you to the chairman and members of the Senate and Assembly for inviting me to speak with you this afternoon. As we meet virtually today, think back to just 1 year ago when COVID-19 was transforming from a rumor into a reality. Who among us could have imagined the enormous changes made to the way we humans live our daily lives? Who could have predicted that some of our schools would now be going into a third semester of online instruction? As we hopefully begin to see the end of this pandemic, it is time to set a course for education in New York State that retains the best practices of our past while incorporating the computer skills mastered by our students and teachers in the last year. We must assess our students in a low stress yet reliable way to gain the information necessary to plan remedies for the inevitable deficits that have developed over the past years. We must assist our teachers in catching up their students while providing services for those having a difficult time rebounding. It will take time to recover from this catastrophe, but I believe it can be done. Students are remarkably resilient. Many will welcome the opportunity to return to school and flourish among their peers. I feel that I am qualified to become part of the group that helps assess this course because education has been my life. I taught middle school English in the rural district of Wilson, New York, becoming attuned to the particular problems that beset country school districts. I retired after 31 years and began the doctoral program at the University of Buffalo. My studies there gave me a familiarity with a wide array of educational theories and practices, while my work as an adjunct professor with undergraduate and graduate students allowed me to help cultivate the skills of aspiring teachers. Last year, I joined the faculty of Empire State College, serving as a mentor to teacher candidates. My current mentees serve populations at high risk in the cities of Buffalo and Syracuse. This variety of experiences has given me a wide-ranging perspective on education. During my extensive career, I have learned to see the value not just in compassionate teachers, but also skilled administrators, savvy business managers, and informed lawmakers. Each group has its own strengths, but must be open to listening and compromise. We must all bring our best to the table, as I would if appointed to this position. Thank you.
Thank you for a very fine statement. There are questions, and I'll go to our chair of the Senate Education Committee, Senator Mayer.
Thank you, Chairman. And hello, Dr. Smintek-Gorek. Pleasure to have you. I know the Wilson School District, even though because my husband is from Niagara County. My question is, how would you deal with the declining enrollment in many of our rural districts and the efforts by New York State to have a fair distribution of school funding, at the same time supporting our rural children and our rural districts? It's a great challenge that we face. And I wondered, as someone who taught there, what your and for a long time, what your thinking is on that.
Well, again, I believe that redistributing our resources and not redistricting, but combining our schools is inevitable. Our numbers have been slowly declining, and some of the things that we've done up to this point, for example, for a while, Wilson shared a superintendent with a nearby district. And I personally knew the superintendent. It became very difficult for him to be in two places at the same time. I think that these things need a lot of community input. For instance, in Wilson, there were for years and years and years, 2 elementary schools, one serving Wilson, one serving Ransomville, and they had to be combined. For years, there was pushback, and then the community slowly became involved, and eventually they merged the 2 districts. Parents got used to the idea that one district was not going to be favored over the other, and change happened. It's like so many things. When you first set it out, the immediate reaction is, not my district, not my school. We've been here forever. But I think that if we work with the teaching community and through them reach out to the total community, that these types of things can be done. I believe not only rural school districts, a lot of school districts are very top heavy with higher administrators. And as our populations change, we need to be open to combining and, making the best utilization of our resources.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Senator. Let me ask a couple of questions. This is one that have not really been asked before, but we have so many different problems, if you want to put it that way, in New York State. We have a lot of military bases in New York State, and we have a lot of military families in New York State. And the Regents also is in charge of licensing here in this state. And so many of these parents come in, be they teachers or be they in many of the other professions, but they don't have license right here in the state of New York. But we want to accommodate these people who come into and are living here in the state and are professionals, let's say in Arizona. Any ideas on dealing with the licensing requirements of the Board of Regents and people from out of state?
Well, what I'm thinking here is that perhaps the experience that we've had at Empire State College might help us to jump that hurdle. For anyone not familiar with Empire State serves primarily to retrain people who have already had a work history and are looking to move into education. And the program kind of compresses the time frame that's necessary to get licensed. And after careful consideration, it gives people a lot of credit for life experiences that they've had. And so I believe that we could look at that as we are bringing licensed professionals from other states into New York State, that a program could be developed that would assess their past life or their past work experiences in the area that they're coming from, and perhaps give them maybe for some of them, we could immediately relicense them with a New York State license. Maybe for some of them, they might need to do a little bit of coursework to bring them up to the level of people who have their teacher certification throughout New York State. It is a crime, especially in the time that's coming up, to turn our backs on professionals, experienced professionals, simply because they do not come from New York State. I believe that we can look at them, assess their life skills, maybe give them a little bit of extra, coursework that needs to be done, but then we can get them into the classroom in a shorter period of time.
Good, well answered. Just one last question that I have. I'm very, very concerned about teaching our students, both undergraduate and graduate, as to be objective thinkers and how they digest information in today's society, where the former traditional methods was news from TV and news from newspapers and news magazines. But now it seems everybody gets information from all over the place now, social media and internet blogs, many of which is really quite false. How do you address this situation to make kids better critical thinkers?
This is something that it becomes, I find, like, especially difficult in the times that we're living in now, because so many of our parents are polarized from their neighbors, from their families. It's just a time when everybody seems to be on a different page and quite unwilling or unable to listen to people with differing opinions. I believe that we need to approach online the same way that we used to approach print in school, which is simply to present students with opportunities, say perhaps to get information from many different sources and help them look at what the source of the information is, whether it has a specific political bend, whether it has a specific economic bend, whether someone's just blowing things up hoping to get attention, or whether it is someone who is working to present careful information. In a way, I had done a little bit of that when I was just finishing my career as a middle school teacher, because we were just beginning to work from computers, and we had to begin to teach our kids that, if you get something from, say, the Bank of America, perhaps you can, perhaps maybe not, you can trust that a bit more than pulling something up on screen from Stephen Bob's Bank. It's like, where does this really come from? What do people want you to do when they share this information with you? Is that good for you, the direction they're sending you in? Should you really do that? We simply need to help our students. And it's the same thing we always did when our news came on print and on television. We need to get them to question, to go back. Where is it coming from? I think the biggest question is, what do the purveyors of this information want from me? And is that valid? Is it going to be good for me? You have to open conversation.
Thank you very much. We are going to go to Senator John Liu, who's chairman of the State Senate New York City Education Committee. And this will be, it looks like, to close. John, no finer person to close with.
Why, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
very kind of you to say.
Goodbye to you, John.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Smintek Gorik, for putting your name into the process. It's not easy to put yourself out on a limb, so we thank you for that. My question has to do with a long-standing question that's been out there, and I've been struggling with it for a long time myself, which is the concept of equity and the concept of excellence. Some people say that one actually takes away from the other, that excellence, especially the way it's been measured, has led to historical inequity. On the other hand, there are people who say, well, schools are about excellence, and even the way we measure excellence, whether it be through grades or exams, do matter. What's your sense of this balance, if there is, between equity and excellence? Can they be pursued simultaneously, or is there necessarily a trade-off?
I honestly believe that equity and excellence can be pursued simultaneously. Just last week, I was speaking with one of the women I mentor through Empire State College who works in Syracuse. Her students are primarily English as second language learners. And in the course of the conversation that she was having with her students, it kind of came to the forefront that most of her students, if not all of them, are multilingual. They speak their home language fluently, and yet they speak English and they do their schoolwork in English. And it simply struck me that many people looking at these students are saying, oh, these are students with deficits because these students, they're behind in their ELA, they're behind in their math. They're behind in their ELA and their math, but they speak 2 languages. How can we look at them as being deficit learners? I believe that in order to, we have to have equity. We cannot leave anyone behind. We can't get to, say, 3rd grade and say, oh, okay, well, we've been trying to teach you to read for 4 years. You still don't really know how to read in English very well. So you know what? Just do the best you can from now on. I'm going to concentrate on these kids that, really, really shine. We always have to wait for the slowest or the neediest among us to catch up. We have to give them a hand. We have to give them a leg up. We have got to do our very best for them so that no matter what, when they go through our school system, they feel that they have gotten something of value. And I believe that you can really do that. You can support them, and you can put in place programs that will help those students who excel. And they're very competent. They can accomplish a lot of work on their own if they're given a format. And yes, we've got to boost them up. We've got to give them the resources. We've got to send them off in a direction where they can do their very best. But I don't believe that we can ever leave our neediest behind. They need the equity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Smimtek-Warwick, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. And Ms. Gorick, I thank you for being here. I don't see any more people who will ask questions. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your patience. You've been here a while, and particularly your finances that you gave. We will be in contact with you very soon, someone from the staff, to let you know our decision on this. And we wish you only all good things. All the best.
Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This ends our Regent interviews following 2 days of interviews, maybe 7-8 hours worth, but very, very fulfilling. I appreciate all the people who attended, both the applicants and the panel participants, in particular, the chairs of Ms. Glick, Ms. Mayer, Ms. Stavinsky, and Mr. Liu, as well as all the rankers who are here, and Steve Hawley, who seems to be joining us here late. We thank you all for being here. Is there anyone who wishes to say anything before we sign off? Deborah, I wish you in particular a better connection and broadband. And I want to thank you personally for letting me take today's session. And
Senator Mayer has a bill that might be able to help Deborah with her Wi-Fi.
I
We're
do.
all on that.
I do.
May we all be well.
Mr.
be healthy.
Benedetto has it in the assembly, so thank you.
And
Well,
thank
it
you
works.
for
It works
doing
to
that,
listen.
Shelley, and
It
let's
doesn't work
get
to speak.
some movement on it. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Great.
thank you.
Go to
Great
other
job, Mike. Great job.
we have.